Here.
Councilmember Bragg.
Here.
Mayor Dedina.
Oh, sorry.
And
Yes, I'm here.
Council members Spriggs and Bilbray are currently absent.
All right, please rise as Daisy can come to the front and we can say please pledge allegiance. And Daisy comes from us from Nipmuc School, and she was the student of the month honored this month by the Pictou Kiwanis Club.
Put your right hand on your heart. Ready? Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I'm not talking to you, but then I'm
Uh-oh.
happy to see you.
No, that was a smart move.
1, 2. Are there any agenda changes that council members would like to make?
Yes, sir. I would like to pull item 2.6 off of the consent calendar.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda?
Councilman Bragg, could I let you know that the item, there's a proclamation on that same item that the mayor will be presenting during presentations, just so you know. So this is the resolution behind the proclamation that we'll be given.
Thank you. Now we have a period of the evening where the mayor council make any announcements on assignments or committees or disclosures. Thank you, Councilmember Patton.
Taste of IB was a huge hit, sold out, 300 tickets.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you. Any other?
Thank you. With your indulgence, colleagues, I have had a busy couple of weeks, but we are required as council members to report out on meetings that we attend. So I have a report. I've been a busy council member. First of all, I would like to thank the Port District, though, for the new fence that has been installed on Highway 75 and Palm Avenue. Everybody has had an opportunity to see it. It's a project in collaboration with the City of Imperial Beach, the Port District, the City of San Diego, and Caltrans, and it was $300,000. But when you're talking about a statement piece that is the gateway to our community, I think it's well worth it. On March 5th, I attended the MTS Executive Board meeting where the focus was on the Mid-Coast project. It's an 11-mile light rail extension from Old Town to UTC with stops at the VA Medical Center in La Jolla, which is huge for our disabled veterans in the South Bay to be able to get on a trolley and get all the way to the medical center in one seat is going to be amazing. And as chair of the Accessibilities Committee, I ask that all of the ADA components of that project be pulled out and be heard at the Accessibilities Committee meeting on June 11th, so that the disabled community will have the opportunity to truly vet all of those ADA requirements. Then, the same day, at the Accessibilities Committee meeting, we heard how the low floor cars on the Blue Line is truly changing the lives of people in the South Bay. The on-time performance has been enhanced, wheelchair pass-ups have been reduced, and we also have a new paratransit vehicles which have new technology. I was able to take a ride on one of them, and they have real-time responses to requests for rides. Also at that committee meeting, we are reviewing the companion animal ordinance. MTS has recently been sued by somebody who claimed that their 5-foot iguana was their companion animal. So it's distressing to me to see people abuse this companion animal ordinance, because let's be frank. What task is an iguana going to perform? The iguana, excuse me, sir, I have the floor. Excuse me, sir, I have the floor. Thank you. The iguana actually bit and attacked somebody. We also have a rider in the East County who was insistent on bringing his chicken on the trolley with him. And then also another person who brought a goat. So while I firmly believe in companion animals, I think that the misuse kind of dilutes that privilege for the disabled community. So we're going to be researching that a little bit further. On the March 6th, Sandag Transportation Committee, again, the focus was on the cap and trade, and we've all been working on that in our various committee meetings. The grant application process continues to evolve. And this round will be what it is. Next round, we will see changes. It's a work in progress, let me tell you. March 7th, I attended opening day of Little League along with our mayor. Councilmember Bill Bray was there later. And it struck me that Little League is really not about a kid at home plate. It's really about all the people in the community that make it possible. From the parents, the fathers, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, and people who don't even have kids, who just go and support the efforts of making it possible for us to have Little League. March 11th, I attended the BID and Chamber of Commerce meetings along with the city manager, Andy Hall. And of course, they were deep in their planning process for, as Councilmember Patton stated, the Taste of IB and their wine garden over the past weekend. And the Taste of IB was a huge success, so now it's 300 tickets. The March 12th MTS regular meeting, we talked about the bus shelter procurement contract. The city of Imperial Beach has the second most bus shelters in the region. We have 19, so we have been slated to have many of those replaced. Some of the bus shelters are over 20 years old, and the new ones will have lights on the sides of them and lights on the back, so we're excited about that. And also, MTS has received a $1 million federal grant that will be used to help improve security on the system, and many of our county sheriffs will be participating in that program. March 13th, I was a guest reader at Oneonta School. I participated in the Read Across America campaign and read at 2 classes. It was amazing to see every child there just enthralled with their books, and it was also pajama day. So, but I didn't go in my pajamas. March 14th, the 4th District brought us the Symphony by the Sea, which was, if any of you were able to attend that event, it was incredible. Many of the people in the community remembered when we had that event before, and I personally just wanted to thank the Port District for doing that. Our Port Commissioner, Dan Malcolm, was there. Ron Powell from the Port District was there. Our County Supervisor, Greg Cox, was there. Mayor Salas from Chula Vista was there. And I note their attendance because it shows that they really care about our community. They don't have to come to these events, but they care about us. It's important that it's on their calendar. And National Transportation Day is April 8th. We are hosting an event. It's called Stand Up for Transportation, going to be at the MTS offices April 8th at 11:45. It's important that we attend this event. Hundreds of events like this will be happening across the country, and the focus is on to get Congress to pass a bill that would address long-term transportation. And lastly, April 25th is Community Service Day. And this idea was brought to me by a member of the community, and asked that we all pitch in. Perhaps we pick a favorite spot in town that we would like to spruce up and donate some time to. And I would like to request, of course, ask iHeart-IB if maybe they would spearhead that event for us and pick particular event or spot that we could all attend and help facilitate with. The only other thing I would like to challenge my colleagues with is, and this comes out of being at opening day of Little League, I would like to ask all of my colleagues to pick one Saturday and volunteer time at the snack bar. Because if you ever want to know what's going on in town, you just go to a Little League game and work the snack bar. Thank you.
Sir, if you like that. You've already been asked once to not speak out of turn at a council meeting. If you'd like to make a public comment.
I want to be well informed.
We're not going to ask you again. This is your last warning.
Now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
How did I think?
Thank you, Councilmember Bragg. Appreciate it. Any other items to share?
Mr. Mayor and council and community, I attended as the representative of Imperial Beach on the Metro Wastewater Joint Powers Authority meeting on the 5th of this month. The agenda included largely updates that I've already reported on, but a couple items of interest were that I was formally appointed to be the Metro JPA's representative to the San Diego Independent Rates Oversight Committee, which oversees all of the public utility rates in San Diego, and to the Metro JPA Finance Committee, which oversees the audits and the finance arrangements between all the different agencies that are part of Metro JPA, including Imperial Beach, how those costs are shared with the city of San Diego, etc. So that's this is the second time I've been appointed to that committee. I was off of it for about 2 years. One important item I would mention to, especially to the city manager, is that Ann Sasaki, who was the deputy director, has now moved on, and she's been replaced by John Helminski, and he also has an engineering background. So this is important because this individual is overseeing the entire city pure water program, which is the big water recycling, massive multi-billion-dollar water recycling program that's going to provide all of us with a more secure water supply eventually. And also there are issues regarding still the South Bay and where the South Bay is going to come in terms of additional recycling or additional discharge into the ocean, which we have opposed. John told me after the meeting that he was well briefed by Ann on our issues, and I sort of went out on a limb and said we might be inviting him down to Imperial Beach, maybe for lunch or something like that, so that he can get to know us better. So I would think we should follow up on that if we could. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations on the appointment. Councilmember Bilbray? On Friday, I had the pleasure of attending a public workshop for the California Coast Commission on lower cost visitor serving accommodation with our city staff, city manager Andy Hall, assistant city manager Greg Wade, and then our planning staff. And the point of the discussion was really to make a strong case that Imperial Beach should be the recipient of $17 million in unused funds sitting in Sacramento that should be investment funds in lower cost visitor serving accommodation, specifically for communities like Imperial Beach. So what the Coast Commission does is they give a penalty or a fee to very luxury hotels that go on the coast, let's say in Laguna Beach, that charge $400 a night, and then say that money should be allocated to projects that are lower cost visitor serving accommodations to allow middle class families to be able to actually stay near the coastline. Unfortunately, the Coast Commission doesn't have a very good way of sort of, I guess, a strategy on how that money should be spent. And the argument I made is that you shouldn't be taking money on Laguna Beach and spending it in Laguna Beach, that we have a number of hotel projects that would be worthy of those investment funds, and they're straight grants. So Supervisor Greg Cox is on the Coast Commission, so it was a good opportunity to make that argument along with our friends at the Port of San Diego, who've been very frustrated by the inability of the Port Commission, the Coast Commission, to actually allocate basically what should be our public funds. So we've got a hotel coming up on the beach, and we want to make sure that the Coast Commission doesn't actually charge a fee for our community and our hotel, and then give that money somewhere else like Laguna Beach. So, and it was a good opportunity to also argue in favor of and talk about why the City Council approved the Bernardo Shores project, which to me is actually mitigating, providing a gain in wetlands, providing public access to our Bayshore Bikeway by providing a bikeway, and then also providing middle-income housing, which is really important. So it was really good to have Imperial Beach there. Steen from Siberia is there as well. So it's a good opportunity to make the case for Imperial Beach, and I also gave a presentation to the Coastal Commission about why Imperial Beach is such an awesome community. So anyway, and then I just want to thank our city staff, especially City Clerk Jacqueline Hall, and then Ed Villa. I know lots of city staff worked on the Symphony by the Sea, but it was really, really, I called it a perfect evening, and I know how much work that went into it. It was really great to see my council colleagues there as well, and I think we had about 2,000 people from the community. I want to shout out to our Public Works Department, as well as the sheriffs and all the other city staff that were there making it a great event and working on a weekend as well. So thank you guys very much. Now we move on to the, we have a public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Communications City Staff. City Manager Andy Hall, do you have any comments?
You know, Mayor, I just want to echo your statement. There were a lot of people that put a lot of work and effort into the Symphony by the Sea, and I thought it went off seamlessly until I had a chance to talk to them afterwards and hear them say, oh, we could have done this better or that better. They're always trying to do these great events. They always have new ideas, and I don't take the opportunity often enough to thank them for all the good work they do for the community, but they really did themselves, and there's too many to name, but that was a great event, and it was really a lot of fun for the community, and I appreciate their efforts as well. So thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. And now we move on to the public comment period, and just want to reiterate that because of the Brown Act, we obviously welcome comment. We actually want your comment. We want your feedback. But because of the Brown Act, we can't actually respond to your comments at the beginning of the meeting. So the city manager is more than willing to take notes and copy and talk on any substantive issues that you might address and bring up, and we promise to get back to you. But if you see us looking unintently and not responding, it's not because we don't care. It's because we really can't comment. And the other thing, though, is anybody who would like to look under the public and see how we do our public comment can look under section 2.12150 of our Imperial Beach Municipal Code, where it's very clearly laid out about addressing the council. And one thing that's very important, I know some of you here on some issues on the agenda tonight, you can always do a group communication, and the amount of time given to the spokespersons of any group shall be determined by the mayor based on the number of persons present that the spokesperson is representing, and the complexity of the issue and the time constraints of the council's meeting agenda. And those typically don't last longer than 10 minutes. So that's always an option if you have a group of 20 or 30 people and you'd like to designate someone as speaker and then give us all the comment cards, which I will read and make sure everyone knows where you stand on that issue. But that's one option. And then it's also just to let you know that you can always, if you feel like you need to speak for 3 minutes, longer than 3 minutes, you can always get someone else to donate your time to you as well. And then finally, if there's a lot of people speaking on an issue, really get to the point of the recommendation that you're making to the council. Be very clear. What is it you would like the council to take action on? And then also have a very clearly laid out rationale for why, so they understand what your position is. We're trying to do that as well with city staff and the reports that we make. So we're a lot more concise and clear about why we're making the decisions that we're making. So with that, we have the esteemed Jim Mickelson from the Imperial Beach Chamber of Commerce.
I don't know about esteemed. Jim Mickelson, 169 Elkwood, representing the Imperial Beach Chamber of Commerce and Business Improvement District. Here to report to you on a fantastic day we had. We pulled off 2 events, the Taste of IB down the corner of Seacoast and Palm, along Old Palm and Seacoast, and we pulled off the Wine Garden, BID Wine Garden, in conjunction with the Symphony by the Sea. And as you've heard already, we sold out, which is the first time in memory that we've sold out. We limited our tickets to this year to 300, so that our businesses knew how many samples to have available. And the participants this year we used online purchasing the tickets along with online social media, especially Facebook, and created a lot of groundswell and a lot of anticipation. We found that's a great way to tell the city what's going on. Get on Facebook with all the various Imperial Beach Facebook pages. We had 41 businesses participating who provided samples, everything from Thai food, lasagna, ice cream, sliders, shrimp appetizers, T-shirts. U.S. American flags and sort of other promotional items. Our wine garden, I saw her there, and I saw throughout the day, I saw various council members and the mayor. We were happy to see Supervisor Cox come to Taste of IB along with the 78 District Assemblyman Milton. Mr. Milton showed up and went to the Taste of IB. So we had some, support from our elected officials. We appreciate that. And we want to thank the city for their guidance, assistance, cooperation, and pulling off what we had. What I believe was a great day for the chamber, the Business Improvement District, and for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelson. Now we have Albert.
Good evening, council. Welcome. Thanks for having me. My name is Albert Connect. I live at 845 Donix. I'm the founding member of the Community Commission for Better Government. I've kind of overseen some of the things that have happened in my local community. One of the most major things, or one of the most biggest capital improvement projects in Vero Beach right now that I consider that's of importance to me and my neighbors is the Miracle Shopping Center project. And in regards to the Miracle Shopping Center, I've made several observations of the site. I understand the city keeps moving forward on this project. From the visual blight of the project, periods of stagnancy and undeclared schedules of heavy equipment and unmeasurable acoustic noise of their dumps as they deliver fill dirt. That fill dirt fills the air with dust and particulate matter, which directly affects the immediate community without an end date in sight. I can only appreciate the additional workload the Public Works Department has undertaken during these rain events, mediating the recently deposited fill dirt and sediment from clogging the only storm drain in sight, keeping the nearby neighborhood from flooding. My most pressing concern falls with the city. What if the city can't stop the floodwaters? What if private property is damaged? What if there's loss of safety or life? In this regard, I've made observations. I have not seen requests from the city nor applications of the city for a LOMA. It's a letter of map amendment. The last time a letter was done for the risk assessment for that neighborhood was in the late 70s. This letter is an assessment of risk to the homeowners in the immediate area and will need to be complete. It's needed to completely insure and completely inform consumers who have flood insurance or don't have insurance to rebuild if there's a flood. I have discussed this issue with my congressman and received a letter directing me to fill out the provided application, an official letter of congressional investigation. This is for insurance fraud. If we decide to move forward on the project and not provide the risk assessment and provide consumers with the knowledge or the needed information so that they can pay for their insurance and be up to date, that you guys could be found liable for moving forward on a project that's creating a potential flood hazard or a safety issue. Okay? I'd like to see the city move forward in this direction. And I hope to see it move forward because we continue to have one load after another of dirt that's undeclared. We don't know where the dirt's coming from. We haven't had samples of it, but it's still filling up. And I find it particularly bothersome that we noticed the two mounds in the middle of that project that are leading a clear pathway to the storm drain. My optimism says that we're going to at some point build the storm drain so that we don't flood the neighborhood, so that the rest of the neighborhood that doesn't live nearby gets to enjoy the benefits of a project when it's completed. But all my neighbors have been displaced because they've been flooded by a nuisance flooding issue or find their homes condemned or removed through eminent domain. That's something I'd like to see that to happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those comments. Now we have John Howe.
Good evening, council people and honorable mayor and city manager. My name is John Howe. I've been a resident of Imperial Beach.
And your address, please.
My address is 177 Palm Avenue. I've been a resident of Imperial Beach for almost 20 years. I have an issue I want to bring tonight that I would like to read from just for conciseness, I guess.
but it's addressed to the city, and it says, "Dear sirs, more than 5 years ago, I was notified by the city of Imperial Beach that a new ordinance defining short-term vacation rentals as hotels or commercial ventures were incompatible with residential zoning, and I was instructed to cease and desist these activities. Inasmuch as I purchased several properties on South Seacoast Drive for the intended, at that time, legal use of operating vacation rentals, it was a significant financial hardship when I could no longer use these properties for the intended purpose. Renting these properties long-term did not pencil out with mortgages, HOA fees, and special assessments, real estate taxes, and other costs. The transient nature of renters on the beach necessitated almost annual repairs and renovations. However, I complied with the new zoning restrictions until these properties were no longer a viable investment. So I sold 2 properties within the Boca Rios complex for amounts I consider fire sale about the time of the most recent sand replenishment project. Not long after the properties were sold, I noticed the new owner of one was marketing the same property he purchased from me on a renewed short-term basis. I was disappointed to see he was apparently overlooked and continues operating on a short-term basis after the city aggressively pursued and prevented me from my gainful employment, but not the new owner. So I waited for the last 2 years to see what would happen. No one likes a snitch or a rat, therefore it is only now that I am filling out the required complaint form that can't be anonymous. I object to having to do that. I have no grudge against the new owner, nor have I ever even met the man. He is not alone. There are any number of homeowners and property managers in Imperial Beach listing properties on VRBO, Airbnb, Flipkey, and other vacation rental websites. These web pages even have maps detailing the exact location of the properties, so finding illegally zoned properties would not appear difficult at all. The advertising states the minimum number of nights offered. The point is, if the city passes ordinances, it should be obligated to enforce them and on an equal footing. I am out significant sums of money based on the loss of income from not offering short-term rentals on South Seacoast. Yet another owner management agents are permitted to do so with apparent impunity. I am told the city does not have the resources to track down these offenders, yet I seem to be able to do so easily.
Mr. Halper, can you
Succeeded?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll finish the letter another time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that ends the public comment period. And just a question, Madam Clerk, is 1.2, will that, item 2.6, will that go before 4.1, or will that go when we discuss it?
It typically goes at the end of the agenda.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a time.
Mr. Mayor, I was, for some reason, I traveled across time zones and I must have reset my clock a minute or 2 late, so I apologize for coming late. I was going to ask that be pulled and it's done before 4.1 while there are still people here so they can see all the programs that are going to be taking place.
Thank you. Since Councilmember Bragg pulled it, does that sound good to you? Good. Thank you. Okay. So we'll do that right before, after 3.1 and before 4.1. Perfect. Great, and now we have the presentation portion of the evening. First we have item 1.1, recognition of Imperial Beach resident for successful cardiopulmonary resuscitation CPR save. Fire Captain French will introduce the item, followed by engineer paramedic Tyra Moore, who will speak on the cardiac save.
Mayor, City Council, City staff, we're here tonight with a success story. This is something we're always looking for in the fire department and in public safety, to have an end result of somebody walking out of the hospital alive. So to do the presentation, we have engineer paramedic Tyler Moe.
These are my friends. This is Steve, this is Lori, and the children are with us. So actually a month ago today, Steve was one of our patients, and At 4 o'clock in the morning,
Sorry,
we got dispatched.
Can you, I know you want to, everybody speaking in the microphone,
Yeah.
please, thank you.
So at 4 o'clock in the morning, we got dispatched for a male with no pulse and was not breathing. When we arrived on the scene, Lori was doing effective chest compressions on her husband. And then we took over with a CPR or cardio, and there was no today. So tonight we just wanted to recognize Lori for her heroism during CPR connection and for taking the initiative to learn CPR, take the training, take the class. And, you know, it's because of you, Lori, that Aaron and Matt have a dad tonight. That all of us, we have an additional fellow citizen in our community. And
Thank you, Lauren.
not only was Steve discharged from the hospital, more importantly, he resumed the same quality of life that he had before the incident. There's no neurological deficits. No excuses of didn't take the trash out. But that's rare. Statistically speaking, that is extremely rare across the United States. There's around an 8% save rate where patients are discharged from the hospital and have little to no neurological deficit. So, and we can absolutely completely say that that is the case here because of Lori's heroism and doing CPR to husband. So we just wanted to thank you for that and really stress the importance of out there getting training, getting a CPR certification. We do offer that at the fire department and at all the major city events. We also run a sidewalk CPR program. So it works, effective, and we want to thank you and recognize you for that.
Also think this wonderful team, not Aaron, took over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any council members would like to make any comments?
Great job.
Good job to all of them too. Could have done it without you.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, and thank you all the firefighters for the great work you do and all the great training that you have. Thank you. And I think we're going to have Chris Helmer up to receive a proclamation. This item 1.2, a proclamation of recognition of Environmental Awareness Month. And I will read this. April is Environmental Awareness Month, whereas April 22nd is internationally recognized as Earth Day, whereas Earth Day was initiated in 1970 to inspire awareness of and appreciation for the Earth's environment, whereas the beachfront, Tijuana Estuary, and San Diego Bayfront are important environmental resources to the region and enhance the quality of life for residents and visitors to the city, and whereas residents, businesses, government entities, and others can care for the environment by reducing the generation of waste, recycling, minimizing water consumption, lowering energy use, and preventing urban runoff. And whereas the city of Imperial Beach is recognized by the state of California to implement proactive programs to reduce the amount of waste sent to landfills, protect water quality of local waterways, and implement energy conservation measures. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Sarah Stadina, Mayor of the City of Imperial Beach, together with the City Council, wishes to hereby proclaim April 2015 as Environmental Awareness Month. Thank you. And did you have any comment? Did you have anything you'd like to say?
I think we're going to be talking about this later, so we'll just
okay. Sounds good. Okay, let me give this to you. And now we have 1.3, presentation of South County Economic Development Council's 5-year economic development visioning project. And I'd like to invite Cindy Gomper-Graves, CEO of the South County Economic Development Council, to talk about this. Thank you. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members and city staff. We appreciate being here. I'm going to start off by telling you this is on the web at southcountyedc.com because I'm going to go very fast because I understand you have a very packed agenda. I want to be respectful of that. South County EDC is a nonprofit dedicated to economic development in the 5 South County cities: Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, Coronado, the southern part of the city of San Diego, and National City. Got a lot going on in South County, and there's a lot of projects that are creating new economic opportunities for us. Brownfield in September of 2014 was approved by the City of San Diego City Council for major improvements. They'll be adding a new hotel there, over 300 acres of industrial park there, leading to literally thousands of jobs, plus improvements to the airport itself. We will. Which way should I point this out?
There.
Okay. We've also got the cross-border terminal, which I know many of you have heard this for decades and decades, but it's actually under construction. It's actually going to open in December now of this year, so you'll be able to access the Tijuana Rodriguez Field Airport by entering a terminal on the U.S. side, getting processed as a passenger, turning in your ticket, your luggage, and then moving forward and going over a bridge and dropping right into the Tijuana Airport. This is a historic project. It's only the second one in the entire world, and they expect over 1.5 million passengers to be using that cross-border terminal within the first 2 years. New port of entry is coming, Otay 2, which is accessed from the 905-125 connector by a toll road that's known as State Route 11. This new port of entry will be a toll facility that is committed to having wait times significantly reduced and giving border crossers an opportunity to cross the border faster by paying a nominal fee, which is going to help offset the cost for the infrastructure to build SR 11 and Otay 2. We've got a Chula Vista University coming. The city of Chula Vista now has all of the land under its control. This will be the first public higher level of education institution in the South Bay. We're looking forward to that. We don't know what kind of university yet, but we're now making plans towards that university, and at least we have the land now, so we're getting there. It is expected to address over 20,000 students at its prime. I'm sorry, I'm too fast here. Around that university, there are numerous developments happening. The Millennium Project has already broken ground. HomeFed Capital, which is the one who developed San Elijo Hills around the San Marcos, Cal State San Marcos University, is developing most of this in addition to formerly Macmillan, now Stratford with the Millennium Project. HomeFed will also be developing the university, so I'm pretty excited about that. Chula Vista's population is expected to grow by over another 100,000 within the next 20 years. And for those of you who are familiar, Chula Vista right now is the second largest city with 250,000 people in it. The part of that is due to the Bayfront development. This Bayfront development was approved by the Coastal Commission summer before last. It is a landmark project. It is the largest active development project on the entire West Coast. RIDA, R-I-D-A, is a development firm out of Texas that will be developing a 1,200-room hotel and 450,000 square foot convention center. In addition to that, I know somebody near and dear to Imperial Beach's heart, Ash with Pacifica, is developing condos on this site. There'll also be 2 RV parks. There is some supportive residential and commercial in addition to that, and then 2 spaces for 2 more hotels. This kind of looks like a quick picture of what's happening in South County in terms of development. We show this slide. I won't go through all of these, just to give you just the projects that have already been approved, not even discussing the ones in the pipeline. And with this, we show you this because we understand that with this development brings significant job opportunities, not even those directly associated with the development, but also those that can take advantage of the development. And as part of that, South County EDC embarked upon a vision where we interviewed over 5,000 South County residents, visitors, business folks, and interviewed some key stakeholders. And of course, the City of Imperial Beach was very instrumental in assisting us in getting those 5,000. I want to thank them and the Imperial Beach Chamber of Commerce for assisting us with that. We also had significant data to review to make sure we were identifying what industry clusters could take advantage of some of these developments, like, for instance, Brownfield. And I had to look at what industries were growing to make sure that we weren't locking ourselves into something that may not work in South County. So with that, we hired an economic development team, Estelano Lazar Perez, and for those of you who don't know, Cecilia Estelano is one of the premier economic developers in the entire United States. We asked them to do a couple things. Look at these development opportunities and thread them with other potential development opportunities, increase the jobs, make sure we're promoting economic growth and encouraging investment, and mostly make sure we don't lose our quality of life that we all enjoy here. So with that, they came back and said we need to focus on 6 specific industries moving forward. And these are the industries South County EDC is not giving up what we already do, but we're going to put a lot of juice in the next 5 years behind these. You can see those on the screen: aerospace, advanced manufacturing, healthcare, food processing, maritime, and tourism. I'm going to whiz through these really quickly here. So aerospace, we have 9 aerospace companies here in South County with Brownfield. Not sure why we're having a hard time figuring that out. Lots of theories out there. But what we do know is we can be a mecca for healthcare, and we can have things like a cancer recovery center, proton therapy here, and things like that will make our quality of life better for our citizens, and then also provide a wage stream for people to come here and enjoy what we have here while they're recovering. Maritime Industries, Andy and the mayor had an opportunity with me to go visit Orca Maritime in Imperial Beach. That's a little 9-person, 9-employee company here in Imperial Beach that is quite the gem, and I'm sorry, but they are really on top of things. They're doing lots of different things using underwater drones and robots, but probably the coolest thing that they're doing, and this is where the industry is headed, is in addition to looking at unexploded bombs and treasure hunting and stuff like that, they're really looking at mapping the ocean floor. And this is probably the most in vogue thing that they're doing, and they're supposed to be presenting to the Geneva Convention later this month. They're sending drones to not only take pictures of the ocean floor, but come back and put it on GIS maps. So that way eventually we'll be able to zone the ocean floor and maybe say, this part over here is for fishing, this part over here is a cargo route, this part over here is saved as a preserve, etc. Fascinating, fascinating company, and I'm so proud that they're in Imperial Beach. Them, along with a lot of the shipbuilders we have in South County, plus a lot of the auxiliary type maritime uses, makes this probably a prime industry, and also all 5 of our South County cities touch the bay. 2 of our cities, Imperial Beach and Coronado, touch the ocean also. So we're really looking forward to working on this one. Ecotourism, you own it. You've got Tijuana Estuary, you've got trails, you've got all sorts of beautiful things out here. This we want to build on too, and we right now have our tourism committee working specifically on ecotourism for that. We've got some strategies up here on how to grow different things and how to make these things that we're going to focus on more significant. We've got all of our strategic partners here. The last diamond says you, because this is not a South County EDC thing. This is an all of South County thing, and we need a lot of help and a lot of juice to do this. We'll be kicking off the panel of business leaders to tell us what they need, everything from worker type things to education to permit processing to whatever. We'll be happy to circle back with you and let you know when we have that finalized so you can help us do that. We also have a survey online. If you would like to help us, we encourage you to visit South County EDC online, fill this out, turn it in, and we'll make sure that you are sucked up and used and hopefully not abused. And with that, my thanks to all of you again for all the work that you do at Imperial Beach, but also your tentacles travel all over the region. We're very grateful, and a special thanks for hosting at the Tijuana Estuary together with South County EDC, the Assembly Member Alejo reception tour. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Great. Are there any comments or questions from our council members?
Great presentation, very quick.
Any other comments or?
I was impressed you did that in one breath.
Thank you, Cindy, for a dynamic presentation. You always have been. I do have a couple of questions though. On one of your slides, I think it was the one that dealt with Ojai Mesa. I didn't see a jobs prediction in that one on that one slide.
So for Brownfield, for the cross-border terminal, for those you have it, for the other ones, it will be required to be built out of the existing East Ojai Mesa area. East Ojai Mesa has about 2,000 to 3,000 acres of unimproved land that is sitting there in the unincorporated area, waiting for the companies to fill up Ojai Mesa, which is actually happening very quickly, and then moving into East Ojai Mesa. And so you could have distribution warehouses, which typically is very few employees, maybe 50 for like a 100,000 square foot warehouse, to actually doing manufacturing, which is significantly more depending on the type of manufacturing. So we don't know that number yet until we figure out what kind of uses are.
Okay. And then, Mr. Villa, possibly current development project slide, and I just wanted to comment, Cindy, that I didn't see the projects in Imperial Beach listed.
You have some.
Okay, I do.
Yeah. And I think there's some on there. I know Con 20 is on there, which I know is temporary.
Okay.
But I know you on it.
Okay.
You don't have your new hotel on there, which we do need to put on there. The one that's being
right. That, the Breakwater Project, Nathan Pond, Bernardo Shores. There's a couple that.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we come to them? Why don't we do this? Why don't we work on a slide specifically that addresses Imperial Beach? And then when Councilmember Spriggs comes to our board meeting, and if you'd like to come, I mean, I'm sure with permission of the mayor, that's fine. We'll have you show that slide, and we'll even have you talk about every single project in Imperial Beach. Okay. Is that a deal?
I would like to ask. I know you're going to come speak at the Chamber of Commerce meeting later this month.
Correct.
If I don't, and I don't know if you have the time to have that slide produced by then, but I'm sure the Chamber would love it if you have time.
I'll tell you what. If I can get a little help from the city staff, we'll make it happen.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Councilmember Spriggs. Thank you.
Thanks. It's always good to hear your presentations and to have you here, NIB. We think we need an economic consultant, and I have somebody in mind. If there were, I'm sort of following up on my colleague's question, and I think that the Bikeway Village was one of the projects listed on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And you did say ecotourism, that's us, yes, for sure. Can you think of maybe 3 or 4 things we, from a policy standpoint, ought to be doing to maximize Imperial Beach's chances of tying in for maximum benefit to all of these wonderful developments in South Bay, just off the top of your head?
So I think you have a great opportunity with the maritime industry. And I think when we get the maritime panel together and they tell us exactly what they need, I think that would do that. But one of the things I've already heard, and I've already mentioned this to the mayor in passing, and we probably need to do a deeper dive, is they're asking for testing facilities, like a big, deep pool. that they can test the drones and test their equipment and all this stuff. So if we had that in South County somewhere, and I'm just gonna throw this out here, and I don't mean to be offensive, but if we looked at things like Pond 20, where we can combine maybe taking sea bass and nurturing sea bass, or maybe taking some kind of shell fish and trying to make it work so that they're cleaning the water, make it kind of a combo between an environmental and a commerce type of project, and maybe we have some opportunities there where we still preserve part of that Pond 20 that is sensitive and utilize the rest. I would suggest we look at some of those more difficult projects, because we're looking for the leaders to look at those things. We have a beautiful fence now. Thank you all for your work on that. It shouldn't take us 4 years to get a fence, but it did. So we have it now. It's beautiful. But hopefully that is something we can look at and maybe get some of these testing facilities. Two is, if you are looking to attract sales revenue, one of the things that some of the other cities are doing is rebating part of the sales tax. I don't know if you do that. I don't know if you want to. The most important thing that you can do is have guaranteed processing times and any guarantees that you can put into the system without violating CEQA. One of the worst things you can ask somebody to do is to buy a piece of property, spend a lot of money, and take a chance on maybe making it developable. And saying, after you spend all this money, we still may say no. So there's a line that you can't cross because we have CEQA, which we need CEQA, we have CEQA to protect our environment. But there are some gray areas that we need to just refine and look and say, is this something that the city has control over, or could we go ahead and make these more firm and more decisive?
Any other comments? I wanted to thank you for that presentation as well, and also thank you for your championing border trade and these new cross-border projects. I think it's really, really important to have expanded border crossing facilities, and I saw a presentation about this new pedestrian walkway. It looks fantastic. It's an amazing design by a really well-renowned Mexican architect. So I want to thank you for your leadership on that. I think it's been really great to see the South County Economic Development Council really embrace cross-border trade and our partnerships in Mexico. So thank you very much for coming this evening.
Thank you.
And with that, thank everybody again for those wonderful presentations. With that, we move on to consent calendar. It'll be 2.1 to 2.5 and item 2.7. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar item numbers 2.1 through 2.5 and 2.6. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Second.
Great. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. Thank you. And now we have the ordinance section of the evening. We have section item number 1, consideration of first reading of ordinance number 2015-1150, amending changes to Imperial Beach Municipal Code, Chapter 15.50, which is flood damage prevention. Assistant City Manager Wade will give a report on the item.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is just an update of our floodplain hazard ordinance. We recently had a visit from the Department of Water Resources. It's a typical visit, and they performed what's called a community assistance visit and met with our building official and floodplain administrator, Jack Holden. And after that visit, commended us on our activities in implementing the flood maps and our floodplain program. They did, however, recommend that we update our municipal code, chapter 15.5, simply to cite federal and state regulations, and also to add a definition for a specific definition for flood hazard area, special flood hazard area. Those proposed ordinances are before you. They have been reviewed by the Department of Water Resources, are acceptable to the department, and also by the City Attorney's Office, and we recommend that the City Council adopt them as proposed, or waive first reading and adopt the first reading. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any speaker slips or comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
City Council discussion. Councilmember Swift.
At risk of having to recuse myself once again after I asked this question, at the bottom of the background page, page 2 of the report, you did mention flood hazard areas. They are enumerated, but not defined in terms of where they are in Imperial Beach. And I noticed there was no attachment in the report indicating, you know, what we're talking about here. Could you verbally describe what those areas are?
Well, Councilmember, there are many different flood hazard areas. The areas that the community or the city has to be concerned about are in areas known as the 1% chance of 1% flood or a 100-year flood event. So that 1% of the time in a given year, there's a chance that a flood event will occur that will impact that area. The only areas that have been changed on the flood insurance maps are an area very close to the intersection of Georgia and Palm Avenue, a very small section in that depression there as it goes towards the mobile home park that's in the city of San Diego, as well as a very small minor area up by Bayside Elementary School. There is a flood hazard area, so I believe it's flood hazard area X along the beachfront, but that is not in a 1% flood hazard area. It's in actually a 0.2% flood hazard area, and as such, it hasn't been, that area of the maps have not been changed. The areas where flood insurance may now be required are in those areas that have been added to the map as a 1% or 100-year floodplain zone, and those are the ones I just described.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have one comment.
Great.
Mr. Connect, I wanted to point out that to the mayor and council that this is part of the solution to what Mr. Connect was addressing the city council about. We are trying to work on a community-wide flood control issue along with the flood insurance rate map and the other items that he described. It's really a two-part thing. One is what we're adopting tonight, changing our standards, and then also specific development design, making sure that any development occurs on property that their stormwater is retained on site. So it's kind of marrying those two things together to try and address areas in the community that are flood prone, like that specific area. It is an area of concern that we're trying to improve. So thank you for we appreciate him coming and bringing that up tonight.
No other comments? I would like to ask Madam Clerk to read the title before we vote. Take a vote.
Ordinance number 2015-1150, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach, California, amending sections 15.50.010, 15.50.040, and 15.50.060 of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code related to floodplain management regulations.
Great, thank you. Now, I would like to entertain a motion to introduce the first reading of ordinance number 2015-1150 by title only. And please vote.
Mr. Mayor, please vote. Motion carried unanimously by those present. Mr. Mayor, I just received a public speaker slip on this item.
Oh, we did?
Just now.
Okay. Sure. Shannon Davis?
I'm Shannon Davis. I live at 1185 East Lane for 26 years. My concern is Pond 20, and that it's very close to the areas that you did mention that have been changed. And of course, it was originally City of San Diego. They gave it to the City of Imperial Beach. Now the Port Commission is claiming it. And we just heard future plans for it, for maritime experimentation. But we have to remember that this has always been a floodplain. We have to remember that the Otay River can flow into that area. Yes, there's a berm built up. But if we had a devastating flood, that would be a major thorough area for the water to go through. And if you look directly across the street, at the trailer park across the street, you'll see that there's another floodplain right across the street on Palm. And so I don't think we need to neglect or overlook that area. And I do think Imperial Beach, originally it was given to us by the City of San Diego before the Port Commission got in there. And I do think Imperial Beach should have some say about that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Davis.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it's probably worth commenting on that issue. The property of Pond 20 is actually located within the city of San Diego. When the city still had a redevelopment agency, before the redevelopment agencies were dissolved, the oversight of that area in terms of redevelopment was included in the Imperial Beach Redevelopment Agency area. But the property, the actual property has never changed jurisdiction to be in the city of Imperial Beach. The port has always been the owner of the property, which again is different than the municipal or jurisdictional oversight. Now that the redevelopment agency has been dissolved, all land use approvals and any projects that would be approved in Pond 20 would be under the jurisdiction of the city of San Diego. So I wanted to make that clear for everyone on that particular issue.
Great. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 2.6, and that is resolution number 2015-7560, declaring April as Environmental Awareness Month in the city of Imperial Beach. We have Chris Helmer here to give us an update.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to commend you guys because this is actually the 6th year that you guys have passed this resolution declaring April as Environmental Awareness Month. But I also have to admit, I'm kind of embarrassed because this is the least activity that I've ever done for Environmental Awareness Month. Usually the list is twice as long. That's just because I've been working on other issues in the watershed, namely developing water quality improvement plans for the Tijuana River, which you guys will be hearing a lot of in probably your next 2 or 3 council meetings on it. But a couple of things I kind of wanted to highlight. The city has an annual citywide garage sale we do the last Saturday of April. It's been highly successful. Every year I think we're going to get rid of it, but then we get more and more calls of, where did you get rid of the garage sale? So I think that's kind of here to stay. We get about 100 to 150 residents participating in this every single year, and it seems to grow every single year, so we're going to be doing that again. That's immediately followed by the following year, or following weekend, when ECHO holds a homefront cleanup event at Mar Vista High School. That means that if you're a resident of Imperial Beach and you have anything you want to get rid of, you want to recycle, you have green waste to dispose of, you can take it to Mar Vista High School where ECHO is and drop off as many loads as you can take up until they close. And I think they start at 7, they close, I think, at 1 o'clock. So you're running trucks all day, and the reason why we've been doing this for probably many years, for probably 12 years or so. And I wish I had a number. But that's also a very highly successful event. And one thing that the Homefront Clean event has been able to do for our community is clean up some of the accumulation of debris that's been in people's backyards. We used to historically have an issue of stockpiling and hoarding things on people's property because it was an issue for residents to be able to hear. Since ECHO stepped up, we put ECHO on it in 2000 as a really smaller bit, providing this clean event. The easy way for residents. It's highly attended every year. Once again, we get probably about 150 to 200 people dropping off, not just loads, there's multiple loads doing that, and on the order of tons of materials collected and recycled. With that, there's a lot of things. The city's involved in a sea level rise study. One thing I didn't put on here is the city's also actively involved in the South Bay Energy Action Collaborative. It's a collaborative of the South Bay cities, Chula Vista, National City, Coronado, where we coordinate and collaborate on projects to reduce, to improve energy conservation. So with that, I'll take any of your questions, and it sounds like we have additional things we could have added on the year too. So this is just the list that I put down this year, and thanks again for supporting this for the last 6 years.
Are there any comments or questions?
The EDCO project, reduce, reuse, and recycle, but do they shred?
They do.
So we can bring all the tons of paper from everybody's garage, that, old bills and all that stuff.
So last year we actually had 2 separate events. One was this Homefront event, and one was a shredding event that happened a month later. It made a lot more sense just to combine those all into one event. You get greater participation in it. So also, if you have important documents that you need to get rid of, maybe the city clerk has stuff in the city that we usually hire a company that comes to do it for us. But if you need things to get rid of and to be shredded by a company, ECHO is our shredder there to shred and destroy important documents.
Councilmember Bragg, did you have?
Thank you. Mr. Helmer, thank you for this. This is one of my favorite months. And the event, this was the reason why I wanted this pulled off the consent calendar, was so that you could really shout out about these events. The home front cleanup, I don't remember how many years that's been in existence either, but I know that it is in the tons of refuse that is taken out of people's backyards and front yards. So it really has gone a long way. It was all part of cleanup, cleanup citywide. And then again, the citywide yard sales, I mean, that is something that this community asks for year in, year again. Earlier in my opening comments, I talked about Community Service Day, and coincidentally, it's the same day, April 25th, that we have the I Love a Clean San Diego. So I think that our event is right before us. We really don't have to pick another one. So I think that we can just piggyback on what's already in front of us. And then, I really can't thank EDCO enough for their newsletter about the recycle, reduce, and reuse. But if you have, and John was here, John Snyder was here just a little bit ago, but if he could or you could have any influence in another component, another maybe paragraph in there about something that the mayor and I have been talking about, colleagues all up and down the state have been talking about, and that's water conservation. So that if there can be a component about that, it's absolutely critical. We all know that we hear that at every meeting we attend is water conservation. So if you could put in a plug for that, Mr. Helmer, that would be great. Well, that as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Ms. Bragg. I actually did send an email to CalRecycle. They have a water conservation manager or a specialist, but that is their job. We've met a couple of times during the year. And I asked if they had any activities, and they're overwhelmed with other work right now. But that's something that I'm definitely put back on my radar to contact or work close to with CalAnd to make sure that they're getting out their information. If there's any way that the city can partner with CalMerican to get some information on this route.
Okay, that would be great, because, and if they could be invited to that April 25th event, I mean, they probably have plenty of invitations that they can pick and choose from on that day, but certainly if we could talk to Brian Barretto about, possibly having a booth or handouts or literature about the water conservation to go along with that event, that would be great. Thank you.
Let's dovetail on that. The state has just issued new water conservation guidelines regarding particularly water in ponds and other uses of water. We really do need to get some guidelines out, in Imperial Beach around that. It's really the same kind of thing that Councilmember Bragg was talking about. I understand there can be penalties associated with improper water use in these new guidelines or legislation. But I have to admit, I don't know very much about it, and that makes me very uncomfortable as a council member that we don't know more than we do about how to advise our constituents. If there are questions asked of the city, etc., are there answers? Is there a information sheet that's come out, on this, etc.? Maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. Do you have any comment on that?
It might be time to invite CalAmerican to come here, and we've had one-on-one conversations at staff level with them, and they do have a dedicated department that's implementing the new state requirements as well, and we are partnering with them because we have a stormwater code enforcement division that deals with stormwater, which is essentially the same thing as wasting water. If you have water going down the street, it's the same thing as a stormwater violation. So we partner, they let us know of issues that they're responding to. We let them know of issues with basically places where there's pipes breaking or sprinklers leaking. So I think, and I'll leave it up to Andy Hall to decide what to do next, but it might be a good opportunity to bring CalAmerican.
Great, thank you for those comments, and then also thank you for all the work that you do, Mr. Helmer. And also, I do echo the importance of really identifying ways we can improve our water management, given the severity of this drought and the recent news that came out, I think it was yesterday, right, about how severe this drought is. So anyway, thanks again for all that you do. And then with that, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2015-7560, declaring April as Environmental Awareness Month in the city of Imperial Beach. Is there a motion? Great. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, we have item 4.1, resolution number 2015-7556 of the City of Imperial Beach, California, adjusting a regional transportation congestion improvement plan RTCIP fee for fiscal year 2015-2016. And I declare the public hearing open, and Public Works Director Hank Levine will give a report on this item. Thank you, Mr. Levine.
Mayor, Council, I'm recommending that you adopt Resolution 2015-7556, approving a regional transportation capacity increasing program transportation mitigation fee that's charged to every new residential unit built within our city. The fee is to be raised from its current $2,254 to $2,310 effective July 1, 2015. The purpose of this is in 2006 there was a Transnet extension ordinance, Prop A, approved, which included a provision for assessing these transportation mitigation fees for each new residential unit, and it's required to be increased a minimum of 2% per year. And if the construction index for buildings is greater than 2% per year, then it must be adjusted to that new level. And that would take it to $2,310 for this next year. So there really is not very many options for the city. It's mandated by the ordinance that was passed by the voters. I'm recommending approval of the resolution, sir.
Great, thank you. Madam Clerk, do you have any speaker slips?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Good. With that, do my colleagues on the City Council have any questions or comments?
I don't think we've got any leeway on this. It's an automatic formula, you know, for these rates. So go ahead with the motion and then move on to the next item.
Councilmember Patton, any comments or questions? Great. Great. I would like to entertain a motion to I'm sorry, I have to hit the gavel and close. I need to close the public hearing open, and I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2015-7556, adjusting a regional transportation congestion improvement plan fee for fiscal year 2015-2016. Is there a motion? Please vote.
Mr. Mayor, can we have an oral vote, please?
I'm sorry?
Can we have an oral vote, please?
Oh, okay. We do vote now, or?
Okay, you can vote electronically.
Good.
Motion carried unanimously.
And now we have item 5.1, a report about the demonstration roundabout 9th and Donick study report. And City Manager Andy Hall will give a report on the item.
Mayor and Council, it is my privilege, I suppose, to be able to report to you some of the issues surrounding the trial demonstration roundabout that we have that is located at 9th and Donick. I wanted to let you know that we have received about 24 emails, letters, other types of correspondence. There were some petitions that had about 95 people that signed petitions. I would say a large majority of the emails and letters that we received were in opposition of the roundabout or had concerns about how it was working and how it was functioning. And so I wanted to point that out. I was going to start a presentation, and I don't know exactly what happened here. I think we're ready to go. So I've taken some pictures, and again, this is actually the first picture that you see here. I don't know if it's on your screen yet. Oh, here it comes. It's of a water drop, but and then we took a picture of Woody. And then, first I wanted to thank the city of Coronado. They were in town for another meeting, and so they had their ladder truck here, so we were able to take an aerial view of the intersection, and I thought that might be a little bit helpful as we have our conversation tonight, and maybe move through a couple of pictures of what's happening. One of the things that we were able to do is they were able to take a video of the intersection and how it functions, at least at certain times. And so this at least shows how some of the cars were moving as some of these pictures were taken. Gives people an indication. As you can see, one of the things that you can see in the video here is that you can almost traverse the intersection in a straight line. And so in some respects, the north-south traffic has begun to use the roundabout as almost a straight-through street. And that has been one of the concerns that was raised. Now, a lot of the statements I'm making are the issues that were raised in the public correspondence that we received. But that at least gives you some idea of how the cars have been moving through the roundabout. Some other things that have been raised is that perhaps the roundabout is a little busy, or maybe some information overload. There's a lot of color here, there's a lot of signage here. You can see the temporary cones to guide people and whatnot. And some of the comments that we received from the public was, wow, not exactly sure what to do as I approach the roundabout, and there's a lot of information to absorb. So perhaps we can, if the council chooses to continue with the demonstration, maybe find a way for this to be a little less busy and a little bit easier to navigate. One of the other items, and this shows what I was talking about earlier, you can almost navigate the roundabout going straight through. You can almost see there's a straight shot there where you don't have to go through, and what that's caused is that some people who are comfortable with roundabouts have moved through the roundabout at a fast pace, while other people who are a little less comfortable with using a roundabout have a different pace, and so that has been an issue that was raised in several of the comments as well. I put this item in there because I think it demonstrates the same thing we're talking about. Even a large vehicle like a bus can almost go through the roundabout with very little turning radius. And so again, this comment was repeated over and over on several of the items that we received from the public. One of the other items that was raised and has been of concern is that with the radius of the roundabout, there was elimination of on-street parking. Approximately 2 parking spaces in each area of the roundabout, and it totals about 16 parking spaces on the surface. So that is something that we have received comments on and concerns about, was the reduction of on-street parking. The crosswalks, I spent about an hour out observing the roundabout, and I also went down and observed the 4-way intersection at 3rd and Palm, just to kind of compare what's happening at a 4-way intersection and what's happening at the roundabout. There were a lot of comments about pedestrians not feeling safe in the roundabout. I think pedestrians have become much more comfortable crossing the street right at the corner. That's what we've been told. Get out to the corner, look both ways before you cross the street and whatnot. The roundabout removes you somewhat from that corner, and so some people have been uncomfortable with that. I did observe the hour I was there were 8 pedestrians that crossed in that intersection. 7 of them used the correct crosswalk. There was 1 individual that just walked right across at the intersection anyway. And so not all the time is that being observed, even though we tried to make it real clear, this isn't the right place to cross, to use the crosswalks, but that still is, I think, a traditional way of crossing an intersection is right at the intersection. The other thing that you see in this picture is that the bicyclists do cross. There were 2 bicyclists while I was there. They seemed to move through the roundabout rather easily. They didn't slow down, and it seemed to work, at least at the time that I was there observing, which is about 8:15 to 9 o'clock in the morning, just for reference. One of the things that has been brought up, there were comments. Like I say, a majority of them were raising concerns and maybe even opposition to the roundabout. There were certainly some people that were in favor as well. And one of the comments was brought up that traffic can move faster through the roundabout than it does in a 4-way stop. And this picture does indicate, you can see that there are 4 vehicles actively engaged in the roundabout. In a 4-way stop, you can only engage 2 vehicles at a time. And so you can engage somewhat more traffic through a roundabout than you do in a 4-way stop. These are the actual traffic counts. North is on top, south is on the bottom. Of course, you've got the west on the left and the east on the right. And so you can see that a vast majority of the traffic through that intersection is north and south. You can see the morning and evening peak hours. From the north going south, you've got 128 in the morning and 262 in the afternoon going straight through the intersection. That's kind of that symbol in the middle. There's a few people turning right. There's a few people that go clear around the intersection and to the left. People that are going southbound, there's about 233 in the morning and 156 in the evening that are going straight through the roundabout. I'm sorry, going northbound. I apologize. And then east and west, you'll find very similar. Most people that are going through the roundabout, even east and west, are going straight through the intersection. There are a few right and left-hand turns, but primarily you're seeing that most of the traffic at this intersection is straight through the intersection. There have been numerous indications that there's been more accidents and near misses and some of those kinds of things in the roundabout. We asked the sheriff to look at how many accidents have been in the roundabout since it was implemented and tried to compare that with the same period of time a year ago. A year ago there was 1 accident. This year there was 2. So depending on how you look at it, there was an increase of 1 or there was an increase of 100%. But we should point out that the 2 accidents that were reported to the sheriff, in the first incident, there was no emergency vehicles dispatched, and there was simply an exchange of insurance information. In the second incident, there was a report of minor injuries, but there was no emergency transport. So no one went to the hospital. It was an airbag was deployed on a rear panel collision, I think is what happened. So at this point, there have been no other incidents that have been reported to the sheriff's department. So that's what we have on record for that. And then, like I had mentioned, I actually went down and made some observations, and these are just some personal observations that I noticed that the council may find some value in as you hear about this issue. One of the things that stuck out to me at the beginning was the roundabout seemed quieter. Now, I don't know if that's just because the traffic doesn't slow down and start and stop. That's certainly the noisiest time of any car starting and stopping. So there was a marked difference about the roundabout was quieter. One of the things I observed, and I mentioned it earlier, the north and south drivers treat the roundabout as though it's a through street. And they rarely even look for whether or not there is any east-west traffic. So right now that has almost become a through street, at least in my observation. At the 4-way stop, there was a lot more communication between people. Now, when I say hand gestures, it's not what you're thinking. But at the 4-way stop, there seemed to be a lot of eye contact, a lot of communication, people waving people through. And I didn't see that at the roundabout. Now, I don't know if that's because people are a little bit less comfortable using it and were concentrating on themselves. There didn't seem to be as much communication between people. One of the things I did see, when the intersection is clear, very few people stop at a stop sign. They kind of come to a rolling, okay, I'm gone kind of a thing. But it became a little bit more of a 4-way yield when there wasn't a lot of traffic. And bicycles rarely stop. even when there's traffic in the intersection, you rarely see bicycles stop at a four-way intersection. I mean, that's just, again, what I observed. And then it seemed to me that if the center circle was larger, there was still a lot of room to navigate through that roundabout, but I think the traffic would go slower through the roundabout. So again, just personal observations. I'm not a traffic engineer, but again, if I was out there, I figured I might as well give you the personal observations that I saw myself. So with that, Mayor, at least it gives you an overview of some of the comments. That captures a majority of the concerns that have been raised in the letters and in the correspondence. A lot of them repetitive, of course, about those same issues, but I think that we addressed the issues in general that we had heard about the roundabout, and we have a traffic consultant here tonight, should you want to hear from the traffic consultant that designed the roundabout. We have, of course, Chief Clark here and the lieutenant from the Sheriff's Department. So, you know, any staff that you would like to ask questions of would be available to you. And then I can zoom in on any of these if you have any questions of me. And other than that, I'm sure we have a lot of public comment that we look forward to hearing.
Well, let's move to the public comment first. And then we have Maria Elena Rojas has donated her time to Agustin Rojas. So, Mr. Rojas, if you'd like to speak.
Yes.
So that means you have a total of 6 minutes. And again, to the speakers, it really helps us if you're very clear about the recommendation you're making and the rationale of the reasons for making it, so we have a very clear idea of what you would like us to do. So, thank you.
My name is Agustin Rojas. I live at 832 9th Street, Perla Beach, California. When I was making sure last time I was here, I asked, about the problems, and you asked the gentleman in the unit of measurement, was see how many accidents before, how many accidents afterwards. You got to consider that you have pedestrians. They're also in danger. You have children that don't have no knowledge about these roundabouts, and they go across in the corners. And normally, at 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock, when children are going to school and we're going to work, and it's when most of the traffic. I have a video of how dark it is at night, and also when you're running a test on live individuals, you got to notify them. You got to let them know up front how this is going to work before you put this thing. Notify the entire city about this, on how to do it. At night it's too dark, and during the day you got blocking of the parking, like he said. And also we have driveways that have this quadruple solid lines that are significant, is to be a blockage. People are not supposed to cross or cross them. So if you back across it, you're committing a unlawful conduction of your vehicle. So there's two houses that can't back themselves out of it because of being blocked with these imaginary lines. And according to this roundabout by the DMV, and I looked at the internet on that. Also, on the two apartment complexes that are also blocked in the same manner. They can't cross into their apartment complex. Also, the pedestrian crossing, they're only labeled on one side, and the other side, it's blank. There's nothing. But there's pedestrians going both ways, so they should be labeled accordingly. Another thing that is happening that I saw that is the fact that drivers, when they come around the crosswalks are around the corner, which is the problem they had at Point Loma. Since I go up to the laboratory, I work a lot out there. Coming around the corner, there's a blockage of a bush. When you come around, all of a sudden there's a crosswalk, but you can't see it until you're on top of this one. Children got killed up there. Now, the other issue, in fact, is that we have blocking of the emergency vehicle. I saw the police coming in to do in the apartment. They're always coming into this apartment because it's a problem. They can't park in front. They got to park two houses behind to go into the apartments. Also, the emergency vehicles, like the fire department, they can't block right because the pedestrian crossing and the yield signs are sitting out in the street. And also the blocking of the hydrant across the street. They're being blocked by this orange plus other blocking pedestrian signs. And by the time the fire department gets their hoses, moves all the stuff, they have to cut the access to those pedestrian signs so they can get close to the apartments. They're going to be burned down. So there's a real concern about that. Like I said, well, the second accident, you already know about it. Also, we had an incident where one of your workers was out there trying to unplug it on March 2nd And this car just came around, he almost ran him down. So he shook his fist at them and he whistled at this. The vehicle never stopped, he just kept going. Also, the incident that you can see in these videos where the fact that children sometimes, go across the crosswalk and go through the corners because that's what we've been taught. And that's where their best visibility is. I don't know why the fire department and the police department don't cite the city for these blockage of hydrants and blockage of these emergency access to the buildings. That should be the first concern, the safety of these people. And I told you that before, and I don't know where it's gone, but I recommend you remove it, redraw it, just get rid of it. It's a problem that is, waiting for an accident to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have Albert.
Once again, I'll thank council for your time. My name is Albert Connect, 845 Donick, founding member, Community Commission for Better Government. Andy's pictures do show a pretty good picture. It doesn't show the wheelchair ramps. The wheelchair ramps are so far back from the corners that people commit to a turn at their advanced speed because they've gotten so used to going through these turns that they come up on pedestrians. They're around the corners. That's a much better picture, but you don't see it in your big picture. Let alone that the area looks like a construction zone. It's rather busy when you first look at it. I've got friends, I've got people that live in the neighborhood that are avoiding the intersection because it still looks like it's unfinished. So your trending numbers are incorrect. You're not getting true trending like the road was used before. You went from 4 wheelchair ramps that pedestrians, people that are handicapped, that walk up, that are blind, that have been trained to walk up the corners, that don't know where your new wheelchair ramps are at. Okay? So I'm going to start with demonstrations aren't indefinite. We don't continue to create liabilities and put the public at risk indefinitely. We tried it, we spent the money on it, it's done. I was hoping that it wouldn't be something that we would embrace and it would move to the next corner and we would multiply our liabilities. So I'm going to say liability, liability, liability. I oppose the implementation of this element. I suspect that this proposal of such a traffic calming tool was no more motivated than for monetary enrichment and not public safety. The mechanics of driving today's vehicles and laws imposed by for today's drivers require that we identify our intentions when entering an intersection. If I didn't have turn signals, I put my hand out. This means left. This means stop. This means right. Okay? I challenge everyone in here to go to that 4-way stop and tell yourself you want to make a left turn. The construction of this intersection, the first thing you do in your car to make a left is go right. It cancels your turn signal. So the car coming from the other direction doesn't see your intentions that you want to make left. You look at all your traffic accidents. All your traffic accidents have happened on the back corners. No head-on collisions. 4-way stops, however bad they are, they have their problems. But it took the guesswork out of driving. It laid definite blame on culpable drivers. Right now, if I turn my turn signal and I'm the best driver and I follow your rules, I make a left, I want to make a left, unless my hand is out while I'm making the turn, my turn signal shuts off, and I get hit, I've got to explain to the police officer, I've got to explain to the insurance company, and the guy who I hit, if I don't kill him, says my turn signal wasn't on. That's not my responsibility. It's yours to put an intersection up that works. And you're creating a liability not for drivers, but pedestrians as well. And I challenge each and every one of you. I guarantee you, if you've got a new car and it's not drawn by a horse, you turn your turn signal on, it cancels before you make the turn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have Sybil Roller.
Hi, I'm Sybil Robert. I live at 838 8th Street.
Sybil, could you please bring the microphone forward?
Oh, sure.
You could be very better. Thank you.
Yeah, I live at 838 8th Street. Lived there over 50 years. My friends have already pointed out a lot of the problems with the roundabout. My intention is that the roundabout will go away. We'll get the 4-way stop back. I walk a lot, and so I'm not concerned about driving. I don't drive through, I go the other way, I go up to Delaware. You know, keep away from it. So I think Albert's right. The statistics are not correct because my daughter avoids it, my friends avoid it, they take the alley. You know. So I want to tell you some of the problems though that I have seen. Several people mentioned that the roundabout is too small to slow down, and I think that's certainly true. It should have 2 to 3 lanes at least so that you can move out to the outside when you want to leave the roundabout. I myself have felt and seen the apprehension on the faces of other pedestrians as they cautiously step into the street. I don't recall such apprehension that a 4-way stop was. I've seen skateboarders going the wrong way around the roundabout, and I have heard others have seen cars go around. I'm going to skip over some things other people have said. People living near cannot park, near the corners cannot park in front of their own homes. And I have personally heard about arguments between drivers concerning roundabout etiquette, speeding, and right-of-way, where the argument left the roundabout and went up to the CVS or Lowe's parking lot. And on a personal note, I was talking to my granddaughter who drives an 18-wheeler cross-country. She's been to every state in the continental United States. And she said that roundabouts are a nuisance to truck drivers. They just tend to drive right over the center circle, destroying the curbs and marking them up, and then there's more incidents because the curbs get broken and have to be repainted and things like that. So I think you can see that I feel the roundabout is not an improvement. I'd like to see the 4-way stop come back. The roundabout is a hindrance to pedestrian, disabled, and vehicle travel. It is also a potential danger to the residents, the people that live near the corners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Mr. Robert Fulton. And Mr. Fulton, please remember to state your name and your address. And Jim, could you help him? Oh, you got it. Okay. You got it.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and esteemed council members. My name is Robert Fulton. I live at 990 Seacoast Drive. That's right by the lifeguard station. And I walk every day that I can. This site to me is very vital. I go as far as Saturn and back just to go shopping. The most important part of my day is going to the center of the business of this town, and it's 9th and Palm. There's a bank, post office, stores, and I get most of my things done as soon as I can. It's hard to walk up Palm Avenue when there's no sidewalk between where 8 and a half was in 9th Street. So I turn and go down the alley, go to Donix, go to the corner of Donix, 9th and Donix, across the street at the 4-way. And when they first put the circular thing there, I was tripping over curves. I've never fallen yet, got good balance. I finally figured out where the wheelchair ramps were. Then, crossing the street, I can't see very good. I have limited peripheral vision. Well, what's wrong with me is I have macular degeneration right now. It's pretty much taken all my sight away, except the limited peripheral that I do have. So I can't see a car. I'm crossing, even at that yellow ramp, any cars coming from that circle at all. And I've had to jump back out of my way where cars do not stop, even when they see this. So people are unaware. They're just not thinking. If they're texting on the phone while they're driving, they're not going to see me. I have issues with people having rolling stops in the first place, in bicycles. So when it comes to 4-wheel, 2-ton things coming at me, I have a bigger issue. So it's hard for me to get around. I will avoid that corner, go to 9th and Palm and use the cross light, then go back and forth to the post office, to the bank, to the shopping. Excuse me, I'm a little congested. And it was just more convenient to cross the wall. I don't know anything else more to say about it. I was asked to come here and mention that, but I'm worried that I'm going to get hit. And that's why I didn't serve.
Thank you, Mr. Charles Quisenberry? Remember, if you have a recommendation, remember to make it before your time's up.
I'll 3 minutes too. Chuck Quisenberry, 1321 California Street. I recommended we don't do this experiment when it got started. Now I would say we direct staff to remove the demonstration roundabout and replace the four-way. We haven't acclimated to the roundabout. I don't think we ever will. The analysis is it's not markedly different. Four-way stops, roundabout, safety seems about the same, except we spend money we don't have. So it's a no bonus, but we're spending money on it. Comparisons, facts are important. If you're going to talk about collisions, the only thing is police reports if they're finding at fault. And if you're not going to track that, then you need to track monetary damages. If you're going to say, well, there was no T-bones or there was no this, that's kind of irrelevant to smoke and mirrors. You need to talk about actual damage numbers. That will we saved $20,000 because we had roundabouts, or we spent $20,000 more in damage. If we're going to do it for environmental reasons, it seems a little hypocritical, especially with Palm Avenue being shut down in one lane, because you can go out to Rainbow Drive in the afternoon at 3 or 4 o'clock, watch cars sit around and idle. I'm one of them someday. There's a thing called the Heinrich Safety Pyramid. I'm sure the safety officer knows about it. And it basically says, if you have enough near misses, you have accidents. If you have enough accidents, you have deaths. Heinrich Safety Pyramid. We don't track near misses, but I can tell you, I witnessed one. I watched a lady walk across the street with her dog and almost get hit. My friend Doug, his wife, riding a restored, beautiful Honda 90, all restored, almost got drilled in that intersection. She would have been a loss, but that bike was beautiful. Pedestrians, it's confusing. I mean, you look at it, it's just a mess. We've said that. Yeah, I guess you can't really score beauty. It's not as older, but it looks ugly to me. Let's see. And if we want a pretty one, which I think if we're going to have one, we all want a nice one, it's going to cost us $300K. I want a street light on my street before we spend $300K to pretty up the roundabout. If we're going to make the center circle bigger, keep in mind, trailers in California are allowed to be 53 feet long. They don't bend in the middle. So there's a certain math problem that comes with the 53-foot trailer. And you're going to have a shopping center there. You know, trucks are going to go through that, no matter what you do. And then there's a theory or a philosophy among transportation, which I consider myself a transportation expert. And it says, never sacrifice expediency for safety. In other words, you never want to do something faster if it makes it more unsafe. And I do believe, based on my professional experience, that roundabouts are unsafe. I go through the one at Coronado twice a day. Scariest part of my ride. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quisenberry. Now we have Luann Norris. Luann. Okay.
Thank you for letting me approach you. My name is Luann Norris. I live at 882 Elm in Imperial Beach. It's the intersection of 9th and Elm, one block down. And so basically, as you said, say it first, that thing needs to go. It's a hazard for people walking, for people driving, period. Many people are not coming forward saying things. A lot of people are saying, oh yeah, I want that. But if they call, you have to put it in writing. Getting people to put things in writing is more difficult. So you're getting less response than you're hearing. And so, you know, to reiterate a lot of the things that have already been said, this is a 4-lane road, two lanes each direction. You cut it down to 1 each direction, and then you go back to 4. People aren't doing that very well. people that live in these senior towers, a lot of them tell me that they will walk 2 or 3 blocks around so that they don't have to go through that intersection. Personally, when he said he was watching people cross, refusing to use the crosswalk, I will refuse to use that crosswalk. I've almost been hit 2 or 3 times. I'm going to cross at the corner, because at least they see me. By the time they've committed to making their turn, they're on top of you. And if you're anywhere near dusk, you're done. You know, so that's just a thing. The way they even got that 4-way stop in there was because somebody was killed on a motorcycle. You're going to wait until somebody gets killed in the roundabout? It's even worse. You know, you've taken something that was somewhat safer, and now you're going to make it worse again. The only cities that have roundabouts are La Jolla, Coronado, and IB. Do we need to be La Jolla or Coronado? I don't think so. You know, I have a small list because I was sick. I didn't get around to many people, but I don't drive right now because I don't have a vehicle. So I use public transportation. Many bus drivers say they hate it. A couple said, oh, it's okay, but they were not totally for it. Cab drivers had actually signed this, but I only had them do it for a couple days. Cab drivers hate it. A person that volunteers at the fire department, she said the fire truck has to slow down to get through that. Now, if you're going to make that circle bigger, they're going to have to slow down even more. So, you know, I mean, if you take all those things into consideration, it's really worth it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now we have Erica Lowry.
Erica Lowry, 740 Oneonta. I'm going to try and lighten the mood a little bit with a joke. What does it take to get 2 teenagers to make an earworm of a song? This roundabout. And I call my kids. The people are confused about, confused about, confused about. The people are confused about the roundabout, the roundabout. And this is one of the few times you will hear me sing. To name a few of my concerns. This intersection at 9th and Onyx is not where the traffic problem is. The traffic problem is at 9th and Palm, at that signal. Many mornings I have seen traffic go all the way through the roundabout just to stop waiting for that signal at 9th and Palm. The intersection is used as a 4-way stop most of the time that I witness, which is at O-Dark early in the mornings and in the mid-afternoons. O-Dark early, you can't see diddly squat, so everybody in the world is stopping. That intersection is poorly lit. I have seen pedestrians confused and feeling unsafe due to the lack of lighting in that intersection. One pedestrian, which was one of my personal favorites, I saw standing in the middle of the circle, just looking around. The cones remove parking, and they look ugly. And I have even heard of people, I'm not going to name names, this is not anyone related to me though, but doing donuts around the roundabout, just going around in a circle. I could go on and on. I'm not against roundabouts. I had to learn how to drive one early on when I lived in the Caves. That was the only way in and out of the Caves. You had to go through a roundabout. I just want to say this is an ineffective use and a bad location for this roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have the Honorable Brian Bilbray, Sr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Bilbray, 1307 9th Street. I think you're getting a lot of great feedback on this item. I think that I have to tell you, it's a lot of deja vu. That intersection 30 years ago, Mr. Chairman, was a major problem, mostly because of traffic we pegged to the post office. In fact, we have our one-way street because of trying to address that. So this has always been a big problem area. I think the recommendations of looking at how you're going to configure it, I just sort of flash back to 30 years ago, and I think that somebody will remember that when I was sitting where you were, we were putting the landscaped islands on Palm and Coronado at that time before it was Ivy Boulevard. And we had accidents on those almost every weekend. And people were filling these chambers, furious with it. And there was a learning curve, a pretty steep learning curve on that aspect, because it was a major hit. I think one of the recommendations I would ask you to consider, because when someone says, who knows who gets to go? The city of Encinitas, the city of Chula Vista, there's a lot of cities that have it. They have made it clear, so when you put the yield sign up, say yield to those in the circle, so people understand the law is anyone in the circle has right of way. Now, Mr. Chairman, I don't need to tell you, you know the number one pollution, air pollution in this region is auto emissions. The number one uncontrolled is inappropriate traffic management. That four-way stop sign was put there short-term and shouldn't have been addressed because of the sight distance problems. And sadly, people pulling out were not able to see down Palm Avenue and see the problems down there. The same kind of four-way stop was proposed at Elm and at 9th. It was proposed in front of my house down at Grove. And the fact is, this way you're addressing this is trying to take care of a chronic problem that has been around for 30 years, and it's going to take time and it's going to take some work to make sure you do it well. And I think it's something you can work on. And I think the statistics on safety on roundabouts, no matter how people get concerned about them, mostly it's they're new. And I think when you were young in high school, you remember all the uproar about the turn lanes and about elimination of lanes. So I think the challenge is working with your engineers to get the job right, work on it. That problem is not going to go away until the major federal facility goes away, and we're hoping to save that facility when they're shutting it down. I think you and the council joined with us at fighting the closing of our post office. That intersection needs to be addressed appropriately. Four-way stop's an easy way to do it, but it's been proven to be the most polluting, and it's not the safest. You get the rear ends. But the tough part is people learning to use the proper one. I think there's improvements, and I think the city managers pointed that out. Now I yield back my time.
Thank you, Congressman Gilroy. And now we have the final speaker, Shannon Davis.
Shannon Davis, 1185 East Lane. What I've noticed is everybody slowed down. It's a neighborhood. And I'm thinking of it as a driver. And it's in all of our driving manuals. When you go take your driver's test, you have to know how to navigate those circles. And so maybe we needed to give it more time. And certainly maybe we needed to address the issues of the pedestrians and the handicapped. And there should have been better signage. Maybe there's a way that we can mark those pedestrian lanes back farther around the circle. And there's room for improvement here. And so maybe we've had this period of experimentation. We've found a lot of things wrong with it. I'm very concerned about the fire department. I would like them to come and speak about this issue and the fire hydrant, and if there's concerns about that. But that's my personal opinion. I'm for it because I liked that as soon as you got off of Palm, you weren't racing down to the next light. Everyone was slowing down for that, and an interesting new way to navigate. So that's my opinion.
Thank you very much. With that, that closes the public comment period. Before we entered, I guess, the commentary period of the council, were there any other staff members, the council members would like to have to ask questions before we deliberate? Or
Public safety.
Gene Clark.
Mayor, Council, City Manager. From the public safety perspective, fire apparatus have red lights, they have sirens, they have air horns. They request to get traffic out of the way, and they move through the intersection slowly. We do not want fire apparatus or ambulances racing through town. And at controlled intersections, we want them to come to a complete stop rather than going through an intersection at 25 to 35 miles an hour going code free. We've proven that fire apparatus, when hit in an intersection, will roll over. You see that nationally. And in this case, a traffic circle allows the fire apparatus to move through quickly, but also will clear traffic ahead of it. the issues that you're having right now is temporary item. And you always have to experiment. Public safety put signs up ahead of the traffic circle going in, letting people know about the traffic circle. There were electronic signs in both directions on 9. So from the perspective of public safety, we have not seen any reduced traffic issues, increased traffic issues as a result of this, nor reduced our response times going to incidents. With that, I will answer any questions you might have.
If we could use the buttons so we can sure it's fair. Great. Councilmember Spriggs?
Well, you've heard the public comment, and it's not new. We've gotten letters and emails, over quite a few weeks now, and prior public comment. And the city manager, I think, summarized a lot of the concerns, very well in the presentation. Do you have some specific recommendations for the council to consider before we start talking about how this could be improved to the point where it's safer for pedestrians, safer for handicap, and perhaps the throughway aspect of it, going up and down 9th Street, that's been mentioned by many people, could be corrected. And what would it take, in your view? What kinds of things would need to be done to make this a better experience, let me put it that way, for all of IB residents?
I realize you're public safety director. We also have the traffic engineer, Arnold Tarma, here as well. So
that was what I was going to mention.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of the questions that you're asking me would be better answered by the traffic engineer. But if you're asking me for the recommendation that you have before you, you have to either make it permanent, which then takes in the issues of lighting, the larger diameter circle, improved entrance and exits for people, and that would, I think, make that happen. But the traffic engineer can address the rest.
Good. Mr. Tarma, could you, with that, thank you, Mr. Clark. And thank you for being here this evening, Mr. Tarma.
Hi, Arnold Torman with KOE Corporation, 5095 Riffin Canyon Road in San Diego. And if I understand correctly, the question on the table is what adjustments or modifications might be made to what is now the temporary configuration were it to be made permanent. And
no, I'm sorry, that's not the question.
Okay, sir.
I'm not saying we ought to spend $300,000 to continue the experiment. What I'm saying is, what can we do while it's temporary to make it work better so that people have more confidence in it and have a better experience with it?
Well, I think the variable that's within control perhaps is to increase that center radius, and that would have the effect of further slowing any traffic that is going through in a straight, well, they're not going in a straight line, but the deviation they would have to make would get a little bit greater, therefore might slow them down. That is the one thing, and what we would have to do is essentially move all of that equipment outboard, and it would necessitate some adjustments, some work that could be done in very short order. But that seems, the other concern we hear is, we've heard several other concerns, but I'm not sure without permanent changes that the lighting issue could be addressed.
Would the work required to increase the radius, because I too have witnessed people flying up and down 9th Street and not really paying much attention to the 20-mile-an-hour limit, or the fact that there's a circle and they have to give way to anyone in the circle first. And several people have mentioned, and I have myself, I actually try to use it as much as possible. I go out of my way to use the circle because I want to see how it's working. I haven't voted for it. And one of the things about traffic circles is that they are an example of democracy. Everybody's equal. If you're in the circle, you're in. You have the right of way. It doesn't matter if you're coming in from a side street. Whereas in a normal intersection, the main thoroughfare feels they have the right of way, and people on the side streets, it's not a controlled intersection, have to give way. In a traffic circle, everybody has the same access, depending on who goes in first. But I'm getting at the question of educating the public on the use of the traffic circle and making modifications so that the speed limit is maybe changed down, notified earlier, the circle is larger, etc. How much modification, for example, for your first recommendation about enlarging the circle, how much modification would have to be made to the permanent infrastructure of the sidewalks? We can see two of them here. Is that where the big expense would be? And why you're saying we would have to make it permanent instead of temporary, because a lot of permanent infrastructure would have to change in order to enlarge the circle. Is that basically the conclusion as to why it would cost so much, or would be able to make it permanent if we enlarge the circle?
If this is a continuation of the temporary exercise, then it's an issue of blacking out the yellow paint that is there and putting a new circle, inscribing a new circle with paint and moving some of the equipment and markers further outwards. So that would be work that the public works crew would have to undertake. I mean, if Mr. Levine has any particular concern about that, I think there's a limited number of those black rubber devices, and they may have used them all up. So it might, necessitate a little creativity to do that. But I think this is fairly straightforward work that doesn't involve permanent infrastructure changes to continue the experiment with a different radius.
Thank you, Mr. Spriggs. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. Oh, don't go anywhere. Come on back. Thank you for being here, and I have always appreciated everything KOA has worked with us on. I do have a couple of questions that I hope you can address, and these were questions that were raised by members of the community. So one of the questions that I have is, are entrances to driveways being compromised with people backing in and out? That was raised, I think, by Mr. Rojas.
Yes.
Can you address that issue? Are you aware of that issue?
Well, if I understand the concern correctly, we haven't blocked any driveways, but what is happening is that the pathway for where the vehicles would have to back out or enter the driveway is adjacent to where we're channelizing all the normal traffic on the street. And so it brings them, rather than having, for instance, on north and south, rather than having 2 lanes in each direction, now we're asking them to move into that 1 lane of moving traffic to get in and out of those driveways. So I hear that concern, and it is something that is an aspect of what happens when you would do some channelization like this.
Okay, thank you. We heard about, from the disabled community, wheelchair access, the launching pads. In your estimation, are those currently in the right location, or would those have to be relocated to give a greater sense of security to somebody who's in a wheelchair, somebody who's hearing impaired, somebody who's in a walker, carts? Do you have any input on that?
And I have these thoughts to offer. And first of all, relative to the location where we put the pedestrian crossings is in the relative location that the guidelines recommend for doing these types of roundabouts, and having it back from the throat, back from the place where the cars are actually making that circular motion. And that is to put them in a place where they can view what is coming out of the roundabout or coming toward them. And then there is a little refuge in the middle of the street. I mean, admittedly, right now, defined only by paint and by a, sort of an ugly yellow, orange cone. But in a permanent situation would be a small raised median is what would happen, and that would provide a little refuge to get halfway across and then complete the movement. It was interesting to listen to the gentleman speak with macular degeneration and the difficulty of having that straight on eyesight. And I sympathize and appreciate for what challenges that must mean, especially when we have what are, right now, we've simply blocked off the traditional previous pathway with an orange barricade, and absent, what would have been designed as permanent improvements, I appreciate that it could be confusing to deal with that. But the location is where the location for pedestrian movements is recommended to be handled these things.
Okay. Have you given any thought to the effects, from the breakwater project that might have on this roundabout?
Well, that was considered in, you might say, two senses. One is we did have an opportunity to look at the traffic studies that were done as part of the EIR by the applicant and that were processed through the city, so we're aware of the additional traffic that would be going on. And that really isn't of a concern. More of a concern was the fact that there will be delivery movements that will involve larger vehicles, whether they actually have to, whether they're leaving or whether they're entering the breakwater project from its 9th Street access, or whether, for instance, they might be coming down Knox for some reason. And that's why the radii that are involved here were sort of carefully checked using methods to see what a large semi would sweep for its radius. So a normal standard automobile, in fact, has a generous amount of room to be able to get through there. Some of this dimensions and radii that have been picked in order to not impede what would otherwise be a regular semi-truck for being able to either make a 90-degree turn or go all the way through it, as well as fire equipment and other types of vehicles like that.
Okay, the issue of the loss of street parking was raised also. Are you in agreement that there were 16 spaces lost?
I don't have the exact count in my head, but I agree that on each quadrant, the fact that having this channelization come out has had an impact on parking, and 2 per quadrant sounds reasonable, and 2 times 4 times double size would give you 16, yes.
Okay. Explain to me how increasing the center radius would affect. I'm not sure it would have too much of an effect on the buses. Most of the buses on that route are articulated buses, which means they bend in the middle. But let's say it's something that doesn't bend in the middle. So how would?
No, they don't.
Not one does.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay, excuse me.
On the video, you can
I'm
see.
thinking of another one. Explain to me how increasing the size of that radius would improve things. I'm not real clear on that.
By increasing the radius of the center circle, would mean that vehicles that were trying to go essentially straight through, continue on 9th particularly, would have to deviate more out of their direction before coming back to clear and get on the far side of it. And so that greater deviation that would be forcing them to do would presumably then slow them down. And we paid some attention to the speeds through here, but that has a relationship. But at the same time of doing that, we couldn't willy-nilly pick an increased radius without just double checking that the buses and the other vehicles that do and need to go through there would continue to be able to do it. We see that the bus drivers seem to be doing it fairly comfortably, and they told us when we've asked a few of them about that they like it. The question is, would they like it if we made it even tighter? Maybe, maybe not, but we certainly couldn't prevent their ability. That would be inappropriate.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Patton.
How much wider would you go on the yellow line?
I don't have a dimension, and I think if I were to guess at a dimension, it would prove to be something else. That would best be answered with a little bit of thought and development given to it. But I mean, it's going to be something more than a foot, obviously. That would be hardly noticeable.
Right. Flashing lights at the crosswalk, is that something you could do?
We could do. Whether or not it would be in your best interest to do it or not in a permanent installation is debatable. And they come with an expense, and the one that has been put out in front here, we've seen that well, be embedded in the pavement, right, had its own technological problems and support issues, having some
On the poles.
on the poles.
I love them. I love them because, you know, you see people.
I think one of the downsides that also goes with it, yes, they become visible, and yes, they get reinforce whatever message you're trying to deliver, is people have to live next to them too. And to have this going off, through your window curtains in the evening is certainly going to be noticeable, perhaps. Yeah, so the short answer is yes, it can be done. Do we want to do it? That remains.
Diffuse the light. I'm sure there's a way.
Things can be done directionally and whatnot, but
For safety for pedestrians.
There's one other dimension. It's sort of as you look at the circumstance right now. There's a lot of stuff out there on the street. Okay?
Yeah, it's busy.
And there is a point at which the more stuff we add, the more cluttered and busy it gets. And I was looking at some of these things done in other countries recently too. And in the final circumstance, there can be a lot of cleaning up for what can be done, and not always adding equipment, but sometimes removing stuff. But I'd be the first to admit that that's but there's a lot of orange stuff out there right now.
Confusing. And down the road, plants, shrubs.
It would be lovely to see that incorporated in that, sculpture for that matter. But that's going to be your decision in terms of what kind of money you feel is ultimately appropriate to.
But that's a possibility.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Tarham? Great. Okay, well, with that, any other staff members that the council would like to consult with? No? Okay. So this reminds you of the street end options, and we have some options to consider and some consensus to build. So just to make sure that I'm clear, the options, and if there are any more, please let me know. The options I see written down in the staff report are to continue to monitor the roundabout with no change, to do immediate alterations to, maybe Mr. Torrance suggested, improve the circle and other alterations, to remove completely, and then, or to design immediately, ask the direct staff to design a permanent roundabout, which I think the cost was estimated $350,000. And just for the record, because I think it's important to count the public comment, if we look at all public comments as a unit, so emails, petitions, letters, calls, and then the public comment, the total number of units against and for, so some people just had opinions, they weren't against or for. There are 103 people are against the project versus 6 who voiced support. That's total. That's all the emails, all the public comment, that's the petition. So that's about 5.8% people in favor of the project, and obviously 90 or something like that, something against it. So anyway, with that, we'd like to. Any comments from our colleagues? Let's start just to do the button so I can make sure I'm fair in choosing people. So anyway, go, Mr. Spriggs.
I remember a couple of years ago we were talking about this project. May have been longer than that. We talked about the reasons for trying it and some of the assumptions behind those reasons. And the reasons were, one of the big assumptions that we made is that people would learn to adapt to it. And because there's roundabouts in so many cities and so many communities, and they had to start somewhere. And IB no different than any other community in that regard. It's a question of learning how to use a roundabout. Now, I don't believe IB citizens are less adaptable than citizens anywhere else. What I think we have here is not the optimal design to allow people to use the roundabout properly at the right speeds, with the right understanding through signage that people in the roundabout have the right of way, and that's what yield means as you enter the roundabout. And there may be more public education than we used up to this point would have been useful. Now, having said that, I'm not sure that the corrective measures that we've been talking about and hearing about are going to change an already very strong public opposition to this roundabout. We had our chance to do it right. We didn't. And it's not the people of IB's fault that we didn't get adaptation to this. It's the fact that we didn't do it in the best way to give it the best chance of succeeding. That's my opinion. To create a permanent roundabout at a cost of $300,000, estimated cost of $300,000, is, in my view, not tenable. And I don't think we're going to get the public's backing to even continue this, much less go towards a permanent structure, because we didn't win people over with this project up to this point. Now we're behind the 8 ball. We're sort of, you know, in the final quarter of the game, and we're down 20 points. Looking ahead, whatever we do to tinker, to take it to its final fruition, would assume that the public has a change of mind and that we're willing to spend the money. There's no point in tinkering if we don't see a path forward to success in a permanent structure. We haven't really talked about the environmental reasons and whether we see ourselves as an eco-friendly, environmentally friendly community, because there's value in that that's hard to quantify in dollars and cents. The things that we do in terms of creating more bicycle lanes and opportunities for eco-friendly movement of people, it's hard to value those costs. Sometimes we've gotten grants to make those changes, and so we haven't had to bear the full cost, so we haven't had to weigh the cost benefit of that kind of development, bicycle development, for example. This is akin to that because it allows vehicles to move around without polluting as much. And there's a value there that we haven't really been able to measure. Even in the staff report, there's a statement in here, unfortunately. I'm not sure exactly where it is now, but basically the statement is to the effect that the emissions benefits, you know where it is?
Environment section.
Yeah, the environment section. We don't have prior readings to compare, and we don't have examples by anecdote compared to other places that have measured the exhaust or the pollution benefits. We don't have that in the staff report either. So the thing that could counter the public opposition a little bit would be improved some tactical improvements along the lines we've been talking about, and better information about the benefits in terms of environment, because this is an environmentally conscious community, and that might outweigh some of the concerns, especially if we could do some improvements. Without that data about the environmental benefits, I just don't see how we can justify moving towards a $300,000 expense unless we're really willing to make the argument to the public that there is a long-term environmental benefit and the problems can be fixed with another trial period of 2 or 3 months, and wait and see what public opinion is after that period. But I think we're really talking about a Hail Mary in this situation. I don't really see that we've got the kind of public support or the understanding of the reasons for doing this, and the infrastructure as it is, the temporary infrastructure being something that people can adapt to. We have not made that adaptation because we have not designed this right. So those are my thoughts. I really was for this, for the experiment. I believe in IB being a leader in the environment, and we have every reason to want to be conscious and supportive of being a strong eco community. And this was a part of that puzzle that isn't fitting too well. So I'm not really positive about continuing with it.
Thank you. I don't have any additional. Okay. Councilman.
First off, this was a learning roundabout for the most part, not only for the drivers, but also for us as a government on how to put these things in efficiently and how to properly. This, because a lot of comments have been made on safety. This intersection, this form of traffic calming is probably the safest. There's been 2 major studies, one Kansas State University, the other Washington State University, that have all proven that, or have concluded that these things decrease crashes by 39%. You have a 76% decrease in injury-producing crashes. You have 90% decrease in fatal crashes. The fact is that I think we need to put the time in to try and fix what the problems are here. Increase the circle. I believe the yield sign needs to be moved. The yield paint needs to be moved before the crosswalk. If we can, I believe Coronado has their crosswalks raised so that people actually have to slow down before the crosswalk, but we shouldn't be giving up on this. The fact is that these are benefits to communities and will actually save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brock.
First, I like it. I think we should give it a chance.
Councilman Wright.
Thank you. In our staff report, I'm going to read from it. It says the 9th Street and Donix intersection is not a high-volume intersection that experiences failing levels of service at peak periods. And that was important to me. I think that we have other intersections that do fail. And we've all heard from Caltrans that it's a matter of our timing on our lights. So to me, that's just a bigger issue. I'd like to thank my colleague, Councilmember Bill Ray, for bringing this forward. This was a good exercise, as he says, in learning. However, the trial period has just proven to me, and I've been keeping track of the issues that have been raised by the community, and there's just so many of them that are very deep, ranging from safety for our disabled community, effects of the Breakwater project, loss of street parking, the wheelchair access, the entrances to driveways, and more importantly for me, it was the loss of sense of security and safety at that intersection. And I really did appreciate all the work that our city manager put into in going down to that intersection. And I too wondered about when he first said about the hand gestures. I wondered just what does he mean? What did he see? But what the reference that he was saying that drivers are really being gesturing to their other drivers, saying you go ahead, or thank you for letting me go ahead. I really valued that input. I too, and I'm going to put my personal biases aside, but I chose to use this roundabout as often as I could, to observe it, to get used to it myself, to learn from it. However, I just cannot support going forward with it at this time. The cost, I think, is just astronomical for this intersection, and I don't even want to go forward. I want to go back immediately to the four-way stop. Thank you.
I concur with my colleagues, Mr. Spriggs and Councilmember Bragg. Do we want to entertain a motion at this time, Councilmember Bragg?
I would move that we remove the roundabout and reestablish the four-way stop, and at an estimated cost of $500 in materials and labor.
Is there a second?
With real sadness that this experiment failed, I'll second that.
Please vote.
Motion carried by the following votes. Ayes, Dedina, Spriggs, Bragg, no, Bilbray, and Patton.
Thank you very much. And I agree that we didn't all agree on that. I'd like to thank everyone for the collegial discussion and discussion based on actually good observations and excellent questions. Thank you very much. And I want to also thank the public for taking the time to evaluate the project and really be thoughtful about it and providing commentary. Thank you very much. Okay, this is actually going to be even more exciting, even more important. So item number 5.2, and this is a report on the recovery strategy for the Tijuana River Valley, and Environmental Program Manager Chris Homer will give a report on that.
Council, Mayor, thank you very much. At the I guess the January council meeting, January 21st, you authorized the city manager to sign a commitment letter that commits the city of Imperial Beach to participate on the Tijuana River Recovery Team and endorses the Tijuana River Recovery Strategy, which is a strategy developed by the recovery team to address trash, sediment, and water quality issues in the Tijuana River Valley. Tijuana River Recovery Team is a regional water quality control board initiative that started in 2008, and the city's been participating in it ever since. The city of Imperial Beach does not have any land use authority in the river valley, but we have a lot at stake and we have a lot of interest in seeing some of the projects that are identified by the recovery team actually be successful to improve water quality, to address the trash issue in the river valley, to address the sedimentation of our Tijuana estuary. And because of that, the city of Imperial Beach has a seat at the steering committee for the Tijuana River Recovery Team. Well, at the January 21st council meeting, you asked to have an opportunity to discuss at a later council meeting, discuss the Tijuana Recovery Team and the recovery strategy. We have Melissa Valadavinos from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, who is actually, I guess, the de facto project lead for the Tijuana Recovery Team. And I'm here to be able to answer any questions too from a city's perspective on it. I got a couple slides that I can just show that show a map of the watershed. So I'll open up for discussions for either me or to Ms. Valadavinos.
I'll just introduce myself. I'm just here to answer any kind of questions, or if you want me to provide some background information, I'd be happy to. As Chris said, I'm Melissa Valadavinos. I'm an engineer at the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board. Our agency considers the Tijuana River Valley an incredible resource, and we have very significant concerns with sediment and trash in the river valley. We allocate a lot of our resources, which are spread pretty thin in our office. We have a little over 60 people, but we have a huge workload. Our executive officer, he devotes a lot of his time to the Tijuana River Valley work, and I devote about 50% of my time, which is pretty generous, like I say, given the workload that we have in our office. But that's the direction I've been given by my upper management because it is such a priority to us. So if I don't know how much background information you have or how much you've looked through the recovery strategy, But I'd be happy to answer any questions. And one thing I'd like to add is last Monday we had our board meeting, and our San Diego Water Board actually adopted 2 resolutions. Let me back up for a second. In 2012, our board adopted a resolution to endorse this strategy and said, okay, we'll endorse this strategy and this approach as an alternative to total maximum daily loads, which would be difficult to implement because the source is primarily from Mexico, which obviously we don't have any authority as the state of California in Mexico. So the board was curious how things have gone over the last 3 years. So last Monday, we provided an update, and that included a 5-year action plan with specific projects in the Tijuana River Valley. So we presented those projects to our board and also asked them to endorse a cleanup and abatement account request from State Board, from our parent agency, of a little over $1.5 million to kickstart some of those projects in the Tijuana River Valley. That's an update as of last Monday, as far as like the support that our board offers to this approach.
Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Spriggs.
I think, well, thank you for coming, and thanks, Chris, for all your work on this over the years. I think it would be helpful to hear about some of the success stories from the project and the effort. I know it's challenging because all the different agencies involved and getting a consensus on actions. And you alluded to the fact that a number of the challenges is outside of our control. So I have really 2 questions. One is, can you talk about some of the successes and what the lessons learned that will help us way forward? And secondly, I have another question about how we can incentivize more support from the other side of the border. Deal with that question second.
Well, I think one of the biggest successes is how we've contributed to what IBWC is doing now. That's the it's the International Boundary and Water Commission. They have a Mexican section and a U.S. section, and they've drafted a treaty minute. I'm not sure if you're aware of the 1944 U.S.-Mexico Water Treaty. One of those minutes, which amends and implements the treaty, was written for the International Wastewater Treatment Plant. So there are very important, very very significant projects can come from these minutes, and because of our collaborative process and all the different parties involved, including IBWC, including people on both sides of the border, because this is a watershed that's on both sides of the border. There's now a minute that is very close to being signed that is going to basically outline the framework for addressing trash, sediment, and water quality issues coming across the border, specifically in the Tijuana River Valley. So that is a huge success. It hasn't been finalized yet, it hasn't been signed, but it's in the works. I've seen a draft version of it, and it's pretty much complete. So that's a huge victory. I think a lot of the other ones, I'm a firm believer in relentless incrementalism. So you might not see something as significant maybe as a minute, and it's still, cumulatively these are still successes. I think just bringing people together, the improved communication and information sharing, not finger pointing. Also, we have funded some studies in the valley so we understand better the conditions of the valley. We understand more about the sources of the sediment and trash. We understand more about the hydrology. There's still more that we want to learn, but we've definitely gotten our toes wet in those areas, understanding better the conditions of the valley. And so this this resolution that was adopted by our board on Monday for $1.55 million request from the cleanup and abatement account, it kind of expands on that. So now we're looking very specifically, we're not just looking at kind of hydrology in general, we might be looking, you know, for example, the Brown property, where there's a legally placed fill. If that was taken away, you know, we think that's going to improve river flow. We think that's going to restore the river to its, you know, natural hydrology. But what impacts could they have? Before we just go and take that fill away, we have to consider what kind of flood impacts that could have. And so those are going to be sort of our next steps. You know, the next set of studies we're doing are very project specific.
Councilmember Bragg.
I have another question.
Oh, sorry.
In my former incarnation, I worked with USAID for a number of years doing regional economic development and a lot of cross-border stuff. And there always has to be incentives for bilateral cooperation. It takes two. And a lot of the sediment trash is originating, you know, on one side of the border, and a lot of habitation is taking place in the watershed. So a big part of the long-term solution would seem to be addressing the habitation issues in the watershed. And there's lots of those. Your fact of habitation, how refuse and waste is treated, if there is habitation, could the habitation be reduced, etc. This all involves, to me, some of the root fundamental issues that somehow need to be more forthrightly addressed at some level, and maybe it's federal to federal level. Or we will continue to work on the fringes. I'm not saying that the work that's being done isn't critical, absolutely essential for our ever-improving Tijuana River Valley situation, and it has been improving. But how far can we go while some of the fundamentals aren't addressed? And what are the incentives that we, as a community that's directly impacted, Ontario Beach is directly impacted, what should we be suggesting to our elected representatives and others, ought to be done to incentivize some more quantum level improvements to address the problems at their source. And I know this is a sensitive subject. You mentioned the term finger pointing. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not about finger pointing. I'm about finding solutions and assisting in those solutions with funds, technical assistance, other resources. That's the way it's done in other international development environments. And to me, that's one of the keys here that seems to be missing. I know it's been present from time to time in terms of support for treatment plants south of the border and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking maybe there's something higher level, something on that level that we need to do with the River Valley catchment basin on the other side where there's habitation as well. So that's basically the big gorilla in the room to me, and I know it's something we want to tiptoe around, but I'm asking for your thoughts anyway.
Yeah, well, I think, thank you. You brought up a lot of really great points, and this issue is really complex. There's public health, environmental, social elements to be considered. There's a lot to be considered, and also how politics works, how governmental systems work in the two different countries. I think there's a lot of value in this minute being developed by IBWC for that reason, because there's the U.S. counterpart and there's the Mexican counterpart that can work with the agencies on the Mexican side. And fortunately, IBWC has been very open to our input on this minute, and even talking about projects before we have a treaty minute that really addresses projects. The one that's in the works, just about finished, is actually just the process, how we're going to do it. It's a framework, it talks about setting up a binational technical committee and things like that. It's how we're going to do it. But they've already been soliciting our input on projects, on real projects, and so that's very promising. And one of the things that we've expressed to them is, we prefer, rather than doing things, taking an end of the pipe approach. It doesn't make any sense because it costs more money to address it on this side of the border, and people on the Mexican side of the border don't want to be living with sewage running through their streets. They don't want their dirt roads eroding away, and they don't want trash running through their neighborhoods. So obviously source control is the preferred approach. And that theme is throughout the recovery strategy. And that's why it was a priority to partner with Mexico. And I think that we have a far better understanding. People from the U.S. side have gone down into the Mexican side of the watershed, and they've seen what the issues are firsthand. We've talked with the council members. We get a lot of simultaneous translation because not everybody's bilingual for our meetings, and so we have a far better understanding of where everybody's coming from. And when IBWC has solicited our input for future projects, that's one thing we talk about. I mean, we'd rather than have trash collection in stream on either side of the border, or picking up trash once it's been deposited in the river valley. I mean, sometimes in stream capture is considered source control. I don't consider that source control. Source control is improved trash collection. But a lot of times there's neighborhoods that don't receive trash collection, or when there's heavy rains, and that's what brings a lot of the trash across. The roads are so badly eroded, trash trucks can't get down into those areas. So we have to really, be sensitive to all these issues. But we inquire, and I think that we express very regularly that we'd rather see source control. Our team has kind of focused a little bit more in the valley now because IBWC has kind of expressed to us, that is their role, to have the binational, to have that role as like sort of the binational leader, I guess, in these projects. So we try to go through them because that's the process that they prefer. So in our 5-year action plan, for example, the projects that we're kind of focusing on the most are ones that we can control on our side of the border. And that doesn't mean that we're neglecting the source control issue. We certainly aren't. But we're saying, well, what can we do in the meantime that this process is going on with IBWC? I think also there's a lot of, I really appreciate the full recovery team. Our steering committee does meet every month, and we absolutely appreciate very much Chris's contributions, the City of IB's representation there. That means a lot to us. The full recovery teams are incredibly valuable too because they're open to the public. There's more NGO participation. We do have NGOs included in our steering committee now, which has been great. It's provided a lot of value, a lot of perspective and insight. But I like the full recovery team meetings because people bring up ideas that are really out of the box. We kind of tend to think in sort of this box, that has to do with what we do on a day-to-day basis. But, people have talked about contacting, for example, Coca-Cola on the U.S. side of the border, or some of the big industries that are making a lot of profit from cheap labor and producing, whatever they're producing in their factories there on that side of the border. And kind of, for example, contacting whoever it may be at their company that's in charge of social responsibility. There are a lot of companies these days that are saying that they prioritize that. So if they're saying that that's important to them, let's see some action on their part. So even just those kinds of approaches, which might not be traditional engineering approaches or something like that, but that type of approach and saying, hey, look what you could do for the community that you're gaining so much from, why not give back to them? And you can also use it to market yourself, brag about yourself that way. So that's nice because we get kind of these interesting ideas that show some promise. It's just a matter of, okay, now that we have that idea, somebody has to take it and run with it, advocate for it.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Brett.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Chris. Always thank you for all of your work on this. I do have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. Who will be responsible for the implementation of the minute, what is written in there? Is it going to be IBWC? Is it the recovery team? Just how is that, how you talk about these ideas and, all that's some of it's kind of philosophical almost. How do you actually get traction?
Yeah.
And get this stuff done?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not finalized yet, so I can't say for sure, but it typically would be IBWC. IBWC is going to be responsible for implementing the minute that they develop.
Okay. I just would like to comment, the IBWC has changed over the years. Do you agree, Mr. Helmers? Okay, you don't have to put it on record, but I think they have changed over the years and have become a lot more approachable and responsible. And Mr. Levine, you may remember years ago, the city of Imperial Beach, we took our Vector truck to the city of Tijuana, and we actually vacuumed out some of their drains down there, which was way ahead of its time. When you think about, what's the problem, how do we solve it, and the two cities work together, and here goes the Vector truck from the city of Imperial Beach on to Tijuana, and I think you were down there for maybe 3 days, and it was remarkable, but the end product was that it helped from sewage period on our beaches. I think there was rocks in their drains, and so it's those kinds of innovative things that I'm always proud to see. We talked about the city of Imperial Beach being a leader, and I'm going to say that was probably 17 years ago. It's been a long time. It's been a very long time ago, but you can see, I think, how the IBWC has changed, and I don't know that we have permission from the IBWC, and I don't know if we even got to get it. We just did it. We knew it was a necessity. So we're in year 3 of this recovery plan. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens at the end of year 5? And it's really, in some ways, I'm very glad to see it, but I'm really thinking 5 years was not long enough.
Yeah. Well. So yeah, this was adopted in 2012, and then just recently we adopted a 5-year action plan, which takes some of the projects that might be in here, but they're described in kind of a big picture sense, and says, here are some specific tasks. This is what we're going to do, task 1 and task 2, and here are the next steps. Here are the studies we need to perform. Here's what we need for CEQA, etc., to make this project go. And it identifies lead agencies. So it's more detailed. And that 5-year action plan was just recently adopted. And the reason why is because our board has the same question. They say we could take our traditional regulatory route. We could use our traditional regulatory measures. They might not be very successful because of the sources being in Mexico, but we could do that. We could issue TMDLs. We could issue cleanup and abatement orders to the agencies that have jurisdictions in the valley. But we think that this is a more effective approach. But our board wants to see real results, and so this doesn't really. It does have kind of a Gantt chart. It does say in general what we want to do, but the 5-year action plan is more specific, and it says, and I'll be happy to send you a link to it. It's on our website. It was just recently adopted, just recently finalized on Monday. But it says this is what our 5-year outcome is. This is what we want to see in 5 years, and here's the steps to getting there. And so the board, we're going to report to them at least on an annual basis to let them know where we're going. And if they don't really see commitment from the recovery team members, from the agencies that have jurisdictions there, they'll take a different approach. They will say, okay, let's go the TMDL route. Okay. So there will be accountability.
Great, thank you.
Any additional comments? I'd just like to thank the regional board and Mr. Helmer for really being proactive. I guess you're giving a lot of credit to the IBWC. I think it's been very clear to me that it's been the regional board and Mr. Helmer and the city of Imperial Beach that have really been pushing the IBWC to take action on things specifically that result in beach closures, like the management of the diverter pipe or channel structure in the Tijuana River. So I just want to thank Mr. Helmer for his diligence and the regional board. It's a pleasure to work and see you guys work to do that. And then, Mr. Helmer, the question for me would be, out of this regional strategy, what are the sort of 2 or 3 elements that you think would have the biggest impact on reducing beach closures in Imperial Beach? Sort of relates back to, I think what most of us are really concerned about, whether or not, our kids get sick in the water or not, and our businesses can stay up, that aren't impacted by beach closures.
I really think the #1 success so far was the collaboration of bringing people together and actually the development, or at least the drafting of the IBWC treaty minute. Once this gets signed, I mean, it's not a done deal yet, but once it's signed, that set up the framework for us really to address issues such as the dry weather flows coming across the river. That needs to be addressed binationally on it, and as of this time, the IBWC is set up and said all this binational collaboration really needs to come through us, and it has to go through the official process of the treaty minute. And the other benefit of doing that is it actually gets federal dollars behind some of the operation and maintenance of these projects. There's a lot of funding agencies stepping up at the state and local level and grant funds from state and even from local agencies willing to design things and implement things in the ground. But the reality is the real cost to anything that we put in as a solution is the long-term operation and maintenance. And everyone is looking over at the federal government to step up and take more of the responsibility on this. And the big hope right now is the IBWC treaty is that mechanism for us to get more federal accountability for the maintenance and for the issues and for the road flows and for the beach closures that are going on in this river valley.
Great, thank you, and thank you both very much. There's no further questions. Thank you both for all the work that you do and in your presentation. And for anybody interested in this, additional information tomorrow at the T1 Estuary from 3 to 5 p.m. Assemblymember Lisa Alejo will be leading the California State Assembly Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee. We're hearing on this issue, and I think we'll have some of the leaders on this issue from both sides of the border, including the Secretary of the Environment, Carlos Griswold, to speak. So I think that should be an illuminating and important hearing as well. So thank you. All right, next up on the agenda, this is a little funner. 5.3, discussion regarding the disposition of the 1993 West States fire engine. And Chief French, Captain French will lead the discussion.
All right, Captain French with the Fire Department. And what we're doing here today is bringing forth discussion and looking for your viewpoints and what you would like to do with the disposition of our 1993 West States fire engine. Since we put our new engine into service about 3-4 months ago, and we're doing some repairs right now on our secondary engine, by the end of the month we will no longer have a need for this third engine. So if you've looked at the report, we have 3 options here for you to discuss and get your viewpoints on it. Either donate the engine to a fire technology program in the region, either a high school or a college program. Donate it to a city in need in Mexico, if we can find one. And then the third option would be either to send it to auction or to sell it.
Councilmember Patton?
If you could pick, what would you pick?
If I was to pick, I would probably start at the top and look at a fire science program in the region. In 2005, when we disposed of an engine, we gave it to a fire technology program. And the reason I kind of would pick that option is my son is in the fire science program right now at the local program. And I see the need for bringing up the youth of today and give them something to train with. So that would be my choice. But any choice of these 3.
Have you seen one donated to Mexico before?
Yes, it's been done before. I'm not sure recently.
How did it go? Do you know?
I cannot tell you that.
Councilmember Spriggs?
In either of those scenarios, donation scenarios, how much continuing maintenance is needed, in your professional opinion, for the fire engine that's donated to serve either training purposes in a training situation here in the U.S. or operational purposes if we were donated in Mexico? What would be the ongoing costs in either case?
Well, it is over 20 years old, and with any old engine, it's got over 100,000 miles on it. There is going to be that maintenance cost. If it's possibly in a fire science program, they may not have the money or the funds to do those repairs. But the last engine we gave to the college, as of 2 years ago, I still saw it being used. So they find the ways and the needs to take care of it. If it was sent to Mexico, I'm not sure if, what it would cost them or what they would need to do to keep it in service. And that is one of the reasons why we are trying to move it from our fleet right now, because it would be, over the years, just the money.
So I guess my follow-up comment would be, again, having worked in the international arena, one of the mistakes we make sometimes is to provide American equipment in countries that can't maintain it in terms of the spare parts and the costs and that sort of thing. I'm not talking about Mexico, I'm talking about other places. So that would be a concern of mine to its real utility if that were done. And similarly, if it's donated to a fire science program. So I would really vote for that on the assumption that that you all in the fire department would check out the recipient and there'd be an understanding of what they're getting their hands on and what they're getting into and what it's going to take to really have it continue for a period of years to be valuable as a training tool for students.
I don't have any more requests. Oh, Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. It would be my advocacy as well to keep that fire engine in the region, especially in light of the fact that during the fires brought back to us so that we could have an active engine here as well. And Mr. Spriggs, I do agree with you. I know at MTS we sold some trolley cars actually to Venezuela, and they did not have the technology to keep up with, we had to send people down there to train them how to work on them, and it was really much more than they could handle. We meant well, but it got tired. So it would be my advocacy to keep that engine right here in the region to a fire science training program. I think it's awesome.
Councilmember Biller.
Thank you for your comments. It sounds like it's going to be an easy decision, so I'll go ahead and move that we donate this to fire science training program in the region.
I'll vote.
Mr. Mayor, please vote. Please vote. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. And our last item for the evening, item 5.4, this is something we continued from last time, appointment and procedure for members of community boards, committees, and commissions. City Manager Andy Hall will give a report on the item.
Mayor and Council, I know you saved the best for last, and that is your selection process for committees and commissions and boards in the community. What I attempted to do was to listen to the input that was provided at your last meeting and create a process that would address the concerns that were raised by the various members of the City Council. We'll find out in a few minutes whether or not we succeeded, but what we did try to do was have a process where the City Council would be more involved in the initial selection and provide information to the mayor before he presents a name to the City Council. I have received some input in the last couple of weeks from council members who appreciate the attempt of the mayor to get more information to the City Council members before those names are brought forward. But they just want to make sure that that's done in a way that anybody who is looking to become a public servant isn't asked sensitive questions or difficult questions in public that maybe are better served just in one-on-one interview with the mayor.
So anyway, we have proposed this, listening to what we thought we heard from the city council, but again, it could be modified. Right now, the bottom line where we need to end up is that the mayor will present a name to the city council for their advice and consent. That's, at the end of the day, that's where we need to end up. How we get there is really a preferential decision that needs to be made by the city council.
Good. Well, with that, Councilmember Patton, since I think you were indisposed last time, is there any comments you'd like to make?
Same for me.
Any other comments?
I think you accurately captured, what we talked about. In essence, if there are twice the number of applicants as there are positions, that the mayor would appoint a subcommittee. The only thing I would add that really wasn't reflected here is that since this is going to happen a couple times during a given council term, that the subcommittee, the council members selected are on a rotating basis, so that there's not the same people selected all the time to do the preliminary interviews. We did talk about that. This wasn't reflected in the report. Or maybe it was, I just missed it.
Any additional comments?
Mr. Hall, I think you did capture the essence of the discussion at the last meeting, and I would move that we support your recommendation, your staff recommendation here. I think it encapsulates everything that we discussed, gives the input that I desired to the selection process. So I'm grateful for that.
Is there a second, anyone?
I'll second it, including Mr. Spriggs.
Is there a vote?
Please vote.
And with that, we conclude this meeting.
Motion carried unanimously. That's okay, motion carried unanimously.
Ready to get started.
Yeah.
The next one will carry.